Seats and enter the council chambers, please. I'll call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock of the City Council, August the 23rd. We are going to begin the meeting with the invocation offered by Councilmember Stephen Fine. And Mayor Pratt, would you like to lead us in the pledge when he's done?
Actually, the invocation is going to be given by Troy Way of New Beginnings Church. Troy is a Kerrville native, and we went all the way through school together, and good guy, and I'm proud to have him here tonight to give the invocation for us.
Fine. And you can stand if you'd wish.
Father, we recognize today that we're created in the image and after your likeness. And Father, we know that anything that we endeavor to do will be possible because we're with you. And we pray that this meeting would open considering your will, your plan, and your purpose for the city. We pray your wisdom would be on display in each one of these members tonight. We pray that political correctness would be cast aside and our focus would be on the betterment of this community. We pray the peace of God upon each one of these members and a willingness to listen to every point of view tonight. We pray that godly solutions would be discovered for every plague that's coming against this community. And we pray your will be done and your kingdom come in earth as it is in heaven today. In Jesus' name, we thank you and we love you, Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, just for clarity before we begin this meeting, I've been requested to rehearse a few items from our procedural rules in an effort to preserve the decorum and to enhance the flow of information at the meeting. And if you will, bear with me for just a moment. Rule 4.4, control of discussion. The presiding officer will preserve order and decorum, preventing the impugning of any member's motives or other personal comment not relevant to the orderly conduct of business. The presiding officer shall request that all speakers keep comments brief and relevant to the question before the council. All persons present in the meeting room should eschew abusive, rude, or inappropriate conduct. And Rule 4.6, a council member recognized for a specific purpose shall limit remarks to that purpose and shall be recognized by the presiding officer. Anyone speaking shall be recognized by the presiding officer. And one last, Rule 5.4, the presiding officer shall rule on the relevance of comments, and persons making irrelevant, personal, impertinent, overly redundant, or slanderous remarks may be barred by the presiding officer from further comment before the council during the meeting. Primary reason for this is sometimes there's confusion and there's a little bit of crosstalk, and our IT members have asked that each person who speaks on an agenda item come to the podium and express those thoughts clearly so they can have it preserved in the recording. Thank you very much for your attention to that. At this time, we have the item number 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the City Council. Prior to speaking, each speaker must fill out the speaker request form and give it to the City Secretary. City Council may not discuss or take any action on an item, but may place the issue on a future agenda. The number of speakers will be limited to the first 10 speakers, and each speaker is limited to 4 minutes. And at this time, I have a general citizen request from James Wills.
Mayor White, City Council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to chat about something that's important to all of us. My goal is to get the topic I'm going to talk about on the agenda in the future. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. The Hill Country and Kerrville, of course, are the heart of Texas. There may be some reason to be a little concerned, however, about in some areas, are those stars still bright? Bill Wren, an astronomer with the McDonald Observatory in West Texas, recently said he's a little bit concerned and wondering if future generations will be able to enjoy the wonder and the beauty of starry nights, particularly the Milky Way. And so there is kind of a culprit that's been sneaking into all of our communities in the Hill Country and other areas over the last few decades That is light pollution. Pollution caused by city lights, schools, certainly businesses. I can give you a very brief personal example of that. I live about a mile north of the Wendy's and McDonald's, and when I'm up on the roof of my house trying to enjoy the night sky, the light from their parking lots are so bright that it literally lights up our bodies as we're standing there trying to enjoy the night sky. The hill country is kind of on the edge of night, and we're on the edge of an I-35 corridor that's lit up almost like New York City. It is really bright. And people from there come here to enjoy the hill country. They come to enjoy, of course, a river, but there's more than the river running through it. We have these beautiful skies that we need to protect. What are the benefits of trying to come up with better lighting? There are two that are particularly critical in my view. The second one is that it is energy saving. A lot of the new lights that are available do a really good job of being much more efficient. As a matter of fact, I have, for example, a copy of a lighting ordinance from a place like Dripping Springs, and I'll be glad to share that with you at some point. The number one benefit that it really would be great for all of us is tourism. And if people are coming to enjoy our night skies, we want to make sure that they are really beautiful and they're not blocked out by light pollution. In order to do that, Kerrville has a little bit of catching up to do, and I thought I would just highlight what some of our neighbors around the hill country are doing. Dripping Springs was the first international dark sky community in Texas and the number 6 in the world. They have an ordinance, and that's a copy that I have. Llano has adopted a dark sky resolution, basically recognizing an effective, non-intrusive lighting to preserve the night sky. Mason, ditto. Enchanted Rock, you haven't lived unless you've been to see the night sky at Enchanted Rock. And I don't know if you're aware that the Enchanted Rock is now a certified dark sky park. And for those of you who might be interested, there is a stargazing party there on the 2nd of September. I highly recommend it. The Hill Country Astronomy Club will be there with about 15 telescopes. It's quite remarkable. U right here in Mountain Home is also a certified dark sky park, and they're having a dark sky event on Labor Day. So maybe put that in your calendar. Utopia has adopted a resolution. There are 6 counties that have resolutions for dark sky. Fredericksburg has their own lighting ordinance. Lakey has adopted a resolution. And Central Texas Electric Co-op is installing compliant fixtures in 11 counties around us. So, again, I'm just trying to make sure that we can get on the agenda here. I have a professional speaker that comes. His name is Cliff Kaplan. He's the program director for the Hill Country Alliance. That's a marvelous, marvelous website. In case any of you are interested, they are always coming up with great notices about things that would affect us all and of interest. Their website, by the way, is hillcountryalliance.org. We're hoping that the education is the key to get all this going. That's my cutoff time?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, and you're welcome to forward that information to either our city manager or one of us.
Good. We have Shriner University locally where we can do some more of this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next speaker I have for Citizens Forum is Jerry Wolf.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Jerry Wolf, and I live at 509, excuse me,
North Buckboard.
Mr. Wolf, is that inside the city limits?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I'm in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of Kerrville. I lived in Kerrville for 5 years. I've been here 6.5.
Just curious.
Just recently, a year and a half ago, moved out into just a short way near Ingram. My intent in giving you the spreadsheet is to bring to light a problem that I believe that affects the proper way City Council should and must conduct its business for its own benefit and that of the citizens. The spreadsheet shows an inordinate delay in the approval of the minutes of City Council meetings. If you will look at that table, it shows for the last 2 years, since April of 2014 to present date, the delay in approval of minutes, City Council minutes, from one meeting to the next time it was approved. Only 12 times in approximately 50 minutes meetings was the minutes approved at the very next meeting. There's been up from one meeting delay, which would be 4 weeks, up to now several times where it occurred 4 meetings away before minutes were approved. With all elected governmental bodies, the prompt and correct documentation of its proceedings is fundamental to a representative democracy. The City Council of Kerrville should not be an exception to this. In fact, how can any member remember what was said or what was voted on 2 meetings ago or be expected to? Besides that, the citizens of Kerrville are deprived of basic information and decisions of issues brought to City Council, which translates into a lack of transparency. By the way, to illustrate what can happen if the approval of the meetings are not dealt with in a rigid, routine schedule, it appears that the minutes of the meeting of July the 8th, 2014 have never been approved. In this age of government transparency, citizens need access via the internet to all governmental records, especially proceedings where votes are taken on spending taxes and increasing debt. Part of what constitutes transparency is how quickly the information is made available to the public. Let me state clearly, my comments are not a critique, an evaluation, or a performance review of the staff of the city attorney's office. I have no knowledge of why this problem exists and persists, except that it does. It was not my intent to bring this matter to City Council's attention. On June the 28th, I sent an email to the City Secretary asking why there is a delay in submitting minutes for approval. She replied by stating that my concerns were forwarded to the City Manager. It's now been 7 weeks and I have not heard from him. But I not come here just offering a problem or announcing a problem. I came with solutions. One of which is, can the staffing of the City Secretary's office be increased either on a permanent or temporary basis, or use people obviously on city staff who would come over and help out periodically in the Secretary's office and get the city minutes caught up. If not, how about volunteers? And I'll go to the extent I'll offer to volunteer my time of 10 to 12 hours a week if called upon. I also would suggest that the City Council address this as an agenda item at the next City Council meeting and provide direction to the City Manager on how to get the minutes up to date and keep them up to date. Thank you.
Todd, just for public consumption, we place City Council video on YouTube the next day usually. Is that correct? That's correct. So all of the City Council meetings are available.
Yes, sir. I understand that, but it's not the official record of the minute of the meeting. The official record of the minutes.
I was just concerned with transparency.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And by the way, we do have 3 sets of minutes to approve tonight, so that's a good. And I do know that both of the ladies in our City Secretary's office have had illnesses, and so I think they'll get caught up, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Any other person wish to speak in the Citizens Forum? Mayor Pratt?
Jack Pratt, 105 Deerwood. You know, our beautiful river trail is something to be proud of, and a lot of people enjoy that. But there's a particular part of our community that doesn't have the privilege, and that's the handicapped, the senior citizens. It would be nice if some accommodations would be made at least once a week during certain hours where they can take whatever carts or transportation they need to get through the river trail so that they can see the things that the rest of us see. So I'd like for you to put that on the agenda.
The motorized vehicles, the wheelchairs?
For rent.
Or,
Is that what I mean?
Jack, the motorized wheelchairs and stuff like that? Is it?
Anything they need to get through, even if it's a golf cart.
Sounds good.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the Citizens Forum? If not, we have a special privilege this evening. We will move to agenda item 2A, which is the swearing in of the 2016-2017 Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And that was a vision of actually Mayor Pratt when he was in office, and we now are bringing that to fruition. We're very glad to announce that we have a full class that's been appointed. And tonight we have a very special opportunity to swear some of those applicants in. So at this time, those of you who have been approved for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, I would ask you to step forward and stand in the front, please. We'd like to recognize and introduce you and swear you in. So Caitlin Berry and I, who is our special projects manager, have been working together to try to formulate all the agenda items and all of the preparation. Caitlin has worked very hard to correspond with each of these young people, and we're very happy to have them here tonight. We look forward to working with them. What I would like to do is start down here, and I would like for you to introduce yourselves, your name and the school that you're from, and at the end, Judge Prislovsky will swear each of you in mass.
Hi, I'm Christian Cook, and I'm from Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Will Guerrero, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Kiana Dow, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Mary Margaret Bernston, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Nicole Orange, and I attend Our Lady of the Hills.
Hi, I'm Emma Soth, and I attend Our Lady of the Hills.
Hi, I'm Ileana Scotia, and I attend Our Lady of the Hills.
Hi, I'm Lexi Cooper, and I attend Tybee High School.
Hi, I'm Mason Olmstead, and I attend Our Lady of the Hills.
I'm Roman Garcia, and I'm homeschooled.
And I'm Lydia Prislovsky, and I'm homeschooled as well.
That name sounds slightly familiar. I don't know why. So each of these candidates have met the requirements for their particular appointment, and our first meeting will be September the 8th. And we've had a few already confirmed. They might miss a meeting or two because of football or band or some other kind of practice. But they're coming in with the understanding that they must be qualified like all other board members and commissions are. They had to take the open meetings test and make sure that they pass that. They're also going to have to abide by all the boards and commission rules that all of our other boards for the city of Kerrville abide by. So we're looking forward to learning from them and they from us. And after the first meeting, then at the first meeting, they will be electing their officers. From there, they'll be setting their own agenda. So that ought to be real excited. And so I'd like for all of you, after they are sworn in by Judge Prislovsky, if you would give them a round of applause. Thank you all for coming, and all the parents and supporters.
Is this on? Ladies and gentlemen, these are important duties. You are being appointed to official positions with the city of Kerrville, and as such you have official obligations, and you will be taking two statements. One is called the statement, and this is actually an oath. The second one is called the oath of office. We're going to do these one at a time. I'm going to read a few words, and then you're going to say those same words. The only exception is that because there are so many of you that when it's time to say your name, I'm just going to say I, and then you're going to have to say I and then say your own name. All right? Does everyone understand that? I and then your own name. All right. So If each of you would please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value, or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election at which I was elected, or as a reward to secure my appointment or confirmation, whichever the case may be, so help me God. Thank you. And now the oath of office. Please raise your right hand. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Mayor's Youth Advisory Council Member of the state of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God. Thank you. You are officially sworn in.
And young people don't get the big head, but you're now a part of us. And so I believe Ms. Berry has instructed. Do you want to take pictures, photos, a brief photo, and then? Okay. All right. And when you exit, be sure that you sign the form that she needs you to sign out at the reception desk now that you're officially sworn in. We look forward to seeing you on September the 8th. Thank you. At this time, we have item 2B. This is another reason to celebrate, and thank you, Judge, for coming and doing this for us this evening, and special congratulations that we'll be working with your daughter. Item 2B is recognition of the competitive guard team. Ashley Bowles.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight we're here to recognize the accomplishments of the 2016 Kerrville lifeguard team. First of all, I would like to thank the parents and your family members for allowing me to work with your children this summer. It's been a true pleasure, and thank you for instilling such a wonderful work ethic in them. They worked very hard. I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about what lifeguard competitions are. A guard team is a competitive lifeguard team consisting of 4 lifeguards, typically 2 male and typically 2 female. In addition to their regular duties, the team endures rigorous and specialized training to prepare for these competitions. The guard team competes against other guard teams across the state and of all lifeguard training programs. Believe it or not, there's more than just one lifeguard training program. The City of Kerrville utilizes the Jeff Ellison Associates International Lifeguard Training Program. The regional competitions lead up to the state competition, which determines the state champions. Participants are not limited to municipal pools and also include water parks such as Schlitterbahn and NRH2O and Wet and Wild Splashdown. The 2016 guard team members are Ren Vogel, Jacob Pierce, Carlos Nava, Courtney LaQuay, and alternate Taylor Benedict. They are all first-year competitors, and Carlos is a first-year lifeguard. A lifeguard competition consists of several unknown events that can include any topic covered in the lifeguard training program. Basically, anything that they've learned in their training procedures is fair game. The teams have no knowledge of what they will face during each event until they actually walk into the scenario. As you can imagine, this can be extremely difficult, walking into an unknown facility and not knowing what's going to be thrown at you. The guards are very meticulously judged on not only their skill level, but their confidence, teamwork, rule enforcement, problem-solving skills, and ability to recognize and react appropriately to each emergency during the scenarios. One important item to note is that all of these competitions allowed for one lifeguard instructor to compete along their team, and our team did not consist of a lifeguard instructor. They're all basic lifeguard levels. I think you will see that this speaks volumes of their skill levels. Here's some examples of what the lifeguards are trained in and respond to. They also use basic life support equipment such as respiratory equipment, oxygen, BVMs, and VVACs. They also use cardiac equipment such as AEDs or defibrillators. Pretty impressive list. Here are some examples of the type of first aid training our lifeguards are trained to recognize and treat, and many of these were included in the lifeguard competitions. Several of these illnesses have little or no physical symptoms, which requires them to problem solve and figure out exactly what emergency that the victim is having, especially diabetic emergencies. And as you can see, the guards are well-rounded on their training. For some of the staff, it actually sparks our interest and they end up going into the medical field. So Chief Smith, you might actually have applications in a few years. A couple photos of the team training. The top photo is the team providing CPR to a drowning guest. The bottom left is an entry into the water, and to the right, the guards are extricating a passive unconscious guest and also a spinal in the water as well. And as you can see, the little mannequin on the side is also used in training. A couple of photos from extrications. Notice that the bottom left is in the diving well of the pool, which is 16 foot, and it's extremely difficult to actually extricate somebody in this deep of water with only 2 lifeguards. Competition coordinators do their best to simulate emergencies with makeups, props, fake blood, and sometimes a hired professional to create lifelike injuries. Because of this, we do our best in the training to prepare them for their actual competitions. The photo to the left is during one of our training sessions. It's a simulated gunshot exit wound, and as you can see on the right, the team is providing care for her after she was shot and suffered cardiac arrest, and they did very well. Their accomplishments this summer, they competed at the Texas Super Guard competition, their first one. They received 5th place out of 17 total teams, and this competition has been taking place for 34 years. The second competition was the Central Texas Lifeguard competition in New Braunfels. They placed 2nd overall and actually earned some event awards as well. They received 1st place in CPR and first aid, 2nd place in scenarios, and 2nd place in scanning. And by placing 2nd overall, they qualified for the state championships. The state championship is by invitation only by placing in the top 3 at a regional qualifier. There are 4 across the state. The state consisted of 3 different events. There was CPR, there was first aid, and there was also a pool scenario, which is very chaotic, and they had to treat a lot of different things at the same time. Guard team placed 1st out of 12 teams and are the 2016 state champions. They took the lead above Schlitterbahn, the 2nd place team, at 29 points. As you can see, Guard Team is an extremely valuable tool for ensuring the safety of our guests at our facilities. It elevates the knowledge base of the lifeguard staff through rigorous training and on top of the regular in-services. It adds a sense of camaraderie and pride to the entire facility and city. And the Guard Team underwent very intense and exhausting training to prepare for these competitions. I bet they'll be glad to never see a brick again. They were incredibly dedicated and worked tirelessly, all the while asking for increased challenges to improve their skills. They competed against the best of the best in the state, and they came out on top. And with this victory, the Kerrville has earned a reputation of one of the best teams out there. This time, I'd like to recognize each of the Guard team members and present them with their very own rescue tube. Mayor White. All right. Jacob Pierce, come forward, please.
Good job, Ashley.
Congratulations again, you guys.
Good job, guys.
And thank you all for coming. And by the way, I did mention you on the radio, a couple of radio stations. I hope I didn't mispronounce your names. A little disclaimer there. Thank you for all the hard work, Ashley, and you team members. We're real proud of you. Items number 3A, B, C, and D are listed on the consent agenda for approval in one motion. Does any member of the council or the audience wish to take any of these items off for discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve items 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. And at this time, we will recess at 6:31 out of our regular meeting to hold a public hearing for items 4A and 4B. Mr. Barton? 4A is first and only public hearing for the annual budget for the City of Kerrville, Texas, fiscal year 2017, providing appropriations for each city department and fund.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I guess y'all know we've been working on this budget for a little bit of time now, since I think October the 2nd of 2015. We started working on this. So anyway, budget is a continual process that we continue to, I think, refine and improve as we move forward. So with that, and I apologize to Council, I'm going to present a little bit of information, a very brief overview that I can get through in a relatively short order, but it does regurgitate, I guess, or recover a lot of territory that you guys have covered. But since this is a public hearing for the budget, thought it might be appropriate to run through that. So overall, the fiscal year 2017 budget looks at an estimated $51.5 million worth of revenue coming in across all funds. And it looks at about a $50.8 million expenditure moving forward into or through the budget allocations for fiscal year 2017. Again, fiscal year 17 runs from October 1 of 2016 to September 30th of 2017. So it's the 2017 fiscal year. As you'll notice on the preamble of the budget page itself, of which you can find a draft copy online and a copy in the City Secretary's office and a copy at the library if you want to come review those. There's an additional $384,114 in property taxes that are assumed in this budget as part of our property tax revenue. Now, that's inclusive of properties that were on the tax roll for this year, as well as new added tax that was added to the rolls during the year after the initial budget account was set. So remember, we're looking at the assessed value for properties that were on the tax roll for December 31st of the prior year. So the 2016 tax year is looking at property values that were on the roll as of December 31st of 2015. So we're looking at properties that were on roll in 14 and then properties that were added during the 15 year. So out of that, about $250,000 is increased levy that comes from properties that were on the tax roll during the 2015 year. And we've added about $136,000 of additional levy for properties added to the tax roll during the 2015 calendar year, if that makes sense. Okay. As we started the process, we established some basic core assumptions with regard to tax rate, utility rate, levels of operation, new programming objectives that were out there. And so if you kind of go through the budget and kind of highlight it very quickly, we have a philosophy of developing a fiscally sustainable and balanced budget across the entire city budget, including the general fund and the enterprise or the water and wastewater funds. And what we mean by that is that revenues are going to be adequate to cover expenditures. Where we have some potential allocations of reserve funds, we go through as a planned drawdown of reserve, which we do not have for the funds this year. Tax rate, really for the 8th consecutive year, was established at 56.25. That comprises the interest and sinking, the debt service portion of tax rate, as well as the maintenance and operations portion of our tax rate that goes towards funding our day-to-day operations. We're looking at $1.02 per month increase on our water and sewer fees. And again, those are adjusting our base rates. So looking at taking water from $11.43 to $12 per month on the base rate, and then looking at wastewater going from $8.45 to $9 per month on the base rate. So that comes out to $12.24 annual increase for our utility rates moving forward. Last base rate increase we had was 2009, again, which was there to help cover operational expenditures. And then our last consumption rate increase was 2012. We made an adjustment there in anticipation of capital project needs. We're opening the sports complex. That project or facility is expected to be fully open and operational the last 3 months of the fiscal year, and so it looks at 25% of that cost in addition to the other full startup costs that we have. Reclamation water project construction is scheduled to begin also during this fiscal year, so there may be some slight operational effect there. And then there's some salary adjustments, salary-related expenditures, merit pay. We have a merit program that we do. We do evaluations, and based on your evaluation, then there's a related increase to your pay. We have on public safety a STEP program, so time in, service, as well as level of achievement and professional achievement certification goes into your STEP and your compensation there. We have several overtime adjustments where we have some employees in departments that are continually working additional hours and they're receiving comp time. And there's an issue with regard to workplace productivity because as people have to work additional comp time, then they're not here the following week or the following 2 weeks to actually serve us, and it gets us further behind. So we have made adjustments to some of the departments to provide for payment of overtime to address that issue. Plus, on the park side, public works side, our employees are here working overtime on special events for holidays, and so again, instead of providing comp time, trying to provide some overtime to address those issues. We also had done an update to our compensation study last fiscal year, and so those recommendations from that study are incorporated into this budget. Again, citywide revenues, if you can kind of see where the sources of our revenues are coming from. Primary fees are coming from services. Again, this is looking across the entirety of our funds. And so when you look at park fees, you look at water and sewer rates, all those things kind of roll into there. You'll see property tax represents about 20% of the city's total revenue stream moving forward. You can see how that breaks out. The reds are where we have interfund transfers represented. In the budget this year, we try to break out what is direct revenue. And so within some of the expenditures of the departments, like the water and sewer fund, there's an allocation of $1.9 million that comes from the utility fund over to the general fund, for example, to cover administrative services expenses from the general fund that directly serve the utility fund. It's an appropriate allocation or accounting for services and costs. And so, as an example, that would be part of the transfers in that comes over from water and wastewater fund to the general fund, and that's reflected in these balances. So that wraps everything up. We're tempted to try to show what the total revenue streams look like, and really when you net that out, you'll see that in the budget, it's really closer to about $47 million in actual revenues and expenditures that run to either department or operation. Again, citywide expenditures, this nets out really that $41.2 million of direct revenue that gets spent into our operations. I'm mentioning that because there's a compounding effect as you show a cost on one fund and it shows as an expense, and you show that as a revenue on another fund, it has the potential of compounding that. So we have a section of the budget that addresses that question. Again, some of our citywide expenditures, you can see personnel is about 44% of our total expenditure. On the general fund side, we're running about 70 to 73% of expenditures on general fund are personnel and personnel related, and it represents about 25% on the utility fund side, the water and wastewater side. So general fund is service delivery. We're not manufacturing, we're not producing things. We're consuming resources to put people in place, and then we're providing the assets to achieve those things, vehicles, office space, those types of things. But you can kind of see how that breaks out overall. Again, going back to our fiscal sustainability, we do a lot of detailed modeling for fiscal sustainability. We look at a 5-year fiscal model snapshot, if you will. And so when we make decisions year to year, we're looking and contemplating what our overall needs are going to be over time. So as we're talking about adding programs or adding services or making adjustments, we're able to reasonably divine whether we will have adequate resources moving forward to continue to sustain those levels of service under the protocols and the basic assumptions that council provides to us early in the process. But again, key factors here, property tax still at 5625. We are looking at sales tax increases at 3% above current year. If you remember, we had modeled sales tax on a kind of a trend analysis that we had done, and so this is marrying up to that trend analysis. Again, personnel is up 4.1% in terms of cost. Again, merit and step increases, we talked about those. We received Texas Municipal Retirement System re-rate. We have been at 8.9% of payroll, and effective January 1, that goes to 9.8%. But we are 99% funded on that liability. So that is reflected in here. And then we had been provided direction for some new hires, a new code compliance officer, a new deputy court clerk in municipal court to handle increasing workload that's there now that we're fully staffed on the PD side, patrol side. Then again, our sports complex is reflected in there. We've got our pavement management system allocation up to $1.25 million, which is what we had targeted through our study. And again, there's about $900,000 that's going into capital replacement.
Mr. Parton, just for the ones that haven't been here before, I know we've been through it, but for that capital replacement, that quick breakdown on that 900, I know it's set aside for the fire truck, and then the rest are just vehicles, correct?
Correct. There's about right at 300,000 that goes into the first installment, about half of a fire truck that we want to try to acquire in 2018, next fiscal year. And so the balance are equipment allocations out to the capital replacement fund for an ambulance, for dump truck, for police vehicles, some various equipment we need throughout the other departments in the general fund side. When you look at the revenues and you look at our overall tax rate comparison, if you look at the other 10 cities of similar size that are AA bond rating, which we're AA, you can see we're mid-tier with regard to overall property tax rates. So we're consistent there and competitive from that perspective. When you look at our general fund revenues, we're right at 61% of the general fund revenue coming in from property tax and sales tax. And so it's where our revenues primarily come from. Again, if you go back and look on a departmental basis where expenditures go, about 50% of our general fund budget is going to public safety. You can see fire and EMS is a little bit larger of a percentage than police occupies. Again, you got some major equipment costs and some other things that factor in on the fire side. Administration 16%, and that takes in city manager's office, that takes in legal, that takes in a lot of the other administrative HR, IT, a lot of various functions and operations fall underneath that particular operation. Our streets is at about 11% in the budget allocation that we have here. Again, water and sewer, we highlight, again, our fiscal planning and fiscal management here. Keep in mind the purple line is our target for reserve. The green line is what we have our projected unrestricted reserve cash funds in hand to be. The red line is revenue. The blue line is our expenditure. And so on the utility fund, you see some interesting things over the course of some of these years where revenues exceed expenditures, and that's where we have planned drawdowns of capital and cash. You heard a question at your last meeting when we discussed the budget update of, well, you've got up to 12 months of cash sitting in the utility fund side, and are we utilizing that? We have been utilizing that. And as we look at the capital side, there's a planned drawdown of utilizing that cash over time to address our capital needs. And you can see under the modeling that we've run, by the time you get to 2022, we have drawn down that, quote, additional reserve or excess reserve fund there to address the planned capital needs that we've estimated over time. One of the things that we are doing, this is exciting to us on this side of the table, we are drilling more deeply into looking at the weathering effect and trying to divine a more detailed consumption use pattern that we can try to develop for water consumption. So we can get a finer cut in terms of actual water allocation use, trend analysis to look at over time. And that's very important because the more and tighter we can get on actually looking at consumption, it equates directly to revenue, equates directly to the financial resources that will be coming into the system to keep it going. So we're in the process of working on that and hopefully get a chance to present to you as we launch the next budget process. So there's a lot of detailed work going on that.
Is that going to be part of the water and sewer master plan that we contemplate this year?
It's won't be part of it. It's a very detailed analysis, so we're going month by month, looking at year 2007, and so we've just generated a raw data table that's starting to break that down and analyze that. So
in-house.
In-house,
okay.
And so we'll be developing that, and we'll be presenting that back to you later, really as we get towards, presumably towards that January timeframe when we kick off the next budget discussion. Earlier, if we can present that to you a little bit earlier. Again, it's very important for us when we contemplate any kind of rate adjustments, looking at how we are stacking up, and again, are we competitive with other folks around the state and in our area? And so I think what we find is that we are competitive. Our water rates are really low. We're on the lower side. Our utility rates are a little bit on the higher side, and not uncommon to a lot of cities that have to do a lot of capital work. We have a lot of very expensive enhancements and system improvements we have to make on the wastewater side, and so that's driving rates up a little bit compared to water at this time. Overall, we are competitive and we're mid-tier in that area. Again, if you look at the proposed increases, we've got the base fees up in 17, and then we talked about looking at another rate adjustment for 18. So 17 we had the base rate, and then 18 look at some volumetric rate adjustments, and so we're looking at 5% and 2% right now. But after that, we do need to look at a year to year, and as we're starting to push that modeling out, really kind of contemplate, are there more frequent rate adjustments that we need to contemplate? And again, going from 2009 to 2016 for rate adjustments, 2012, 2016 for capital, there's just, with the detailed work we're doing, we just need to take the opportunity to look at that and to help address those issues and needs and make some good financial decisions in terms of how to address our capital needs moving forward. Again, Water and Sewer Fund, overall budgeted spending does include $4 million. We're a little bit over $4 million in terms of the transfer to debt service fund. And so we got a series of COs, we got a series of bonds that have been sold to do a variety of improvements over the years. That does factor in the KPUB loan that we funded here in August, so it addresses that. Again, the $1.9 million we talked about as an interfund transfer over to the general. And then again, we have another portion of our employee base that's funded and paid out of this fund, so it addresses all those payroll-related expenditures. One of the things that we've been sensitive to and we've discussed point blank in our meetings over the last 7 to 8 budget cycles has been the city's long-term debt. There was a decision made when I first got here about 7.5 years ago that we weren't going to try to leverage any additional tax-supported debt, property tax-supported debt that would require a property rate adjustment, and so we've looked year to year to year, and not really have you created really an opportunity where we would recommend, hey, it's time to contemplate an issuance. Plus, I believe that there's some additional work we need to do before we get to making that decision about what and how to contemplate that or other financial tools and mechanisms. But again, you've heard me say this over and over, but by the time you get to about 2021, 2022, you see a significant reduction and a significant drop-off with regard to the existing debt service that you have. And this is where you're on the general fund side, and then here's where your water and sewer fund is. And that orange, again, you can see that 10-year debt service schedule that we have through the KPUB loan program that we, again, brought in and funded this year. What you're looking at on the CIP with regard to the parameters that we've established in terms of capacity for additional debt to stay within our parameters In fiscal year 2019, you're looking at potential $6.7 million. You've got capacity for that. 2023, about $10 million. And 2026, you've got $5 million. And again, that's to try to keep your rates consistent and steady based on our current, and I think a conservative estimate in terms of long-term consumption scenarios. When you look at the general fund side, again, with the parameters that we'd looked at, potential $10 million capacity in fiscal year 2021. So any questions on that? Because believe it or not, I actually have 2 presentations for you on this. My plan is to kind of roll through this, see if there's any questions on the overall budget itself. The community investment plan has a lot of minuses, some really big holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I presented that to you that way so you kind of saw what we had looked at as an overall basis in terms of what some of the major capital needs were going to be for the general fund moving forward. And then we've done some modeling to kind of look at ways that could be funded moving forward. Our fiscal year 17 proposal is balanced. It's fully balanced out. It's addressed. It's there. But when you look further out into 5-year, there's some additional decisions that we need to make. So if there's not any questions from council or from the audience at this point, I'll address those first, and then we can move to the capital if you like.
Just a point of clarification, Todd. I want to make sure that it's clear when we talk on water and sewer fund transfers, the $4 million is transferred to the general fund. That is a clearly defined set of people and tasks.
Well, the $4 million is actually for debt
That's bond,
service.
I'm sorry.
Right, that's the bond payment.
Bond,
So that's all very
right.
easily quantified. The 1.9 million
1.9. I misquoted the number. Right.
Right. We did go and we evaluate that year to year, and we kind of look on a departmental basis how much of the estimated time and resource that department
Right.
is going to directly serve the utility.
So
fund.
you have a formula that allows
Yes,
you
sir.
to staffing based on, so you actually transfer based on the staffing versus need.
Yes, sir.
Do you want questions now on the speaker request forms, or are you going to continue on a different phase of the budget?
It would
Is
just
that-
depend on whoever's filled out something. If you want to come address first, if you want to wait till the capital side,
Okay.
I'm open to that.
Let's wait till you're done with your.
Okay. All right, so y'all ready to launch into the other side of this?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Okay, so in looking at our capital plan, again, kind of going back and reaffirming or reassessing the direction that we had and trying to divine what that means to us in terms of policy making. Again, overall tax rate at 56.25. Now, we talked in February about a strategy that says, okay, if we want to hold our property tax rate for the foreseeable future at 56.25, and we look at what the projected growth in assessed valuation is, we've already seen that the debt service drops off over a period of time. So what that means is that there's less interest in sinking tax rate required to service the debt that's there. So that means that there's an additional amount of tax rate cap or flexible funding that you could still assess and bring into the city's coffers. The question is, how you decide to apply and utilize those funds. Do you allow the 56.25 to stay, have those additional revenues coming in, and use those to begin to fund recurring capital needs and recurring operational expenditures? Or do you try to identify those, capture those, and utilize those for identified capital needs? And so what we talked about was trying to capture that delta of that tax rate. And right now, we're at 7.35 cents per $100 evaluation is the interest in sinking portion of the tax rate that's levied to cover the tax-supported debt for the city. So using the concept that we talked about, again, and looking at available cash and looking at growth in AV and all that assumption, you've got 8, 10, and 5 million in 19, 20, 21, and 2025 as potential to stay within that set of assumptions or directives. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I think there's a citizen input process that really needs to be contemplated in looking at things moving forward, because we've got some subjective priorities and some objective projects in our program that the citizens may want to do. There may be other things and other feedback of things that we need to look at adding to this. The citizens may feel like there's other deficiencies that need to be addressed, and so we need to identify those and then bring those forward and let council decide policy-wise on how to tackle those. But the projects that we put together were prioritized in terms of what we saw as needs out there, looking at operational needs and identifying some of the capital things that were there. But again, highly recommend that we launch that citizen-driven process. And it really needs to start with a community-wide survey, an independently conducted, scientifically significant survey that looks at that. We need to have some citizen advisory committees associated with it. There's processes and things have been used successful in other communities. And then ultimately, it needs to be rolled out with a public involvement process to review that. This graph really kind of shows the concept that we landed on, is saying, hey, look at how you can leverage what is our capacity with our multi-year fiscal modeling. And so the blue is your standing maintenance and operations tax rate. The green is your interest in seeking, the portion that goes to your debt service. And the red is where you have some additional cash available to you under that debt model that I have referred to you. Again, overall, you're staying at 56.25. You see in 2021, you see a little minus there, and that would be a planned drawdown of some cash that you would build up in your fund in that year under this projection. Of course, this is something have to be analyzed every single year. There's a lot of dynamics that go into this, but it's just giving you a picture and a window. Your purple line where you see your available cash on hand, you see it jump in 2020. That's because you're looking at that debt issuance. That's $10 million. You see a jump again in 2014 to 2015. 2024 to 2025, and that's your $5 million issuance on the general fund side. But overall, in looking at that through this time period, this 10-year period, you're leveraging, or you're creating about $16.3 million in working capital, either through cash or through bond proceeds.
So Todd, that was a change from what we had been given into what you gave us tonight. Was the funding in 2019 and the bond funding in 2021?
Well, I'll hit that because there's a couple things, because we've got some 4B in there, assumed in there too. So if you bear with me just one second. And that's actually a great segue to this slide, which is kind of looking at the EIC. EIC has self-imposed a policy that they don't want any more than 45% of their annualized revenue to be allocated towards long-term debt. So they define that as anything over 10 years. They didn't want 4B funds obligated to that. So with that in mind, and then looking at the existing programming and the existing capital projects that have been identified, we went through a process to say, okay, under these sets of assumptions for EIC, how much of their revenue could be leveraged and when. And so what you see under that premise is that you have about an $8 million issuance capability in 2019. And again, the reds and the greens and the blues all mean the same thing. So the blue is that portion, that's 55% of the projected revenue stream of 4B sales tax. The green is the portion that would go towards debt service. That includes existing and then projected for the $8 million. And then the red is where you have that additional excess cash above those two things.
So in 19, you have 6.7 in the water and sewer side and 8 in the general fund side.
No, I'll get to that in just a minute. Yeah, okay. Let me get there. Okay. So if you look at what's in your book, you've got the table on the left. Okay. So that table on the left shows $22 or $23.2 million of projects. There's $22.5 million of unfunded projects that's out there. So how do you address that? How do you get there? The graph on the right, the table on the right, now factors in some additional factors. We had a number of projects that we had dropped off for future funding We went through a process of saying, okay, what revenue streams do you have available? How could you structure those capital projects? And then from that perspective, are there other of those projects out there that we need to contemplate or think about trying to bring back up into the program? And so the graph that you have, this table that we handed out to you at your places, you'll see the yellow highlights. Those yellow highlights is where we've made some changes from what you had originally seen. And so with that, Mayor, I think to your question, the certificates of obligation, general fund supported is, this would look at $15 million projected of debt sold. So $10 million in 2021 and then the $5 million in 2025. Certificates of obligation EIC would support, you've got $8 million. Now, keep in mind that $8 million has to go to qualified projects. We can't just spend it on things that we want to spend on necessarily, that we have to follow state law. And so we have to be careful on how those funds are acquired and utilized. And then pay-as-you-go, transfer from general operating, about $1.3 million. And again, that's looking at those additional revenues that are coming in either through the debt service side or through some additional fund balance on the general fund side that could come in. And then we're anticipating about $700,000 in grants and donations that go to offset this. So overall, you're looking at, again, $25 million of funding modeled and about $24.9 million of expenditure. So you have a net balance of about $171,000 over the 10-year cycle looking at this. Now, some of the primary discretionary issues that we see, you've got the public safety complex that we've talked about needing. That's for police, fire, EMS, and municipal court, trying to develop a campus. We had looked at a $12 million expenditure in 2021. The reality of doing that large of a project at that time, I think under any of our funding scenarios would be difficult. So this looks at potentially breaking that into a couple different phases if you can. And the primary phase would really need to look initially at police and municipal court. Would really need to be contemplated first. The building is rapidly deteriorating, I would say. So, and we have some major investments to make in that building if we're going to stay in there long term. So I think we're getting to a point of cost benefit. Parking garage repairs, that's $500,000 that's there, and looking to schedule that for a 2019 fiscal year allocation. The Croc detention facility, I moved that out 1 year from 2020 to 2021. Excuse me. The fire station 3 remodel we had shown, I think, in a 2018 fiscal year. I moved that out to 2025. There's probably some things we can do in the station to get by until we get to that point. Station's approaching 30 years old, and there's some attention it's going to need, and some upgrades it's going to need. A couple projects we had originally dropped out was a simulcast primary radio channel for the fire department, and so looking at a 2025 target for that. And then Peterson Clock Tower, we do need to contemplate in closing the elevator because when weather gets bad, we do have operational issues with the clock tower. So we've done a really preliminary architectural review of that and have a rough estimate about $250 to address that issue. But one of the key things that we need to do is we need to update our facility master plan. The current plan we have is in 2008. We've accomplished a lot of that plan. So it's time to really consider updating that and look where we need to go. And again, public safety would be front and center on that. Another major discretionary issue here is the Olympic pool renovation. And we're showing $6 million for that in 2019. Kind of holding that as a potential placeholder because we have some major capital expenditures at that pool if we're going to maintain its operations. So that pool is approaching 40 years old, 50 years old, and a lot of that equipment and that facility, it's time to do some upgrades to it. So, and then the EIC side, as you kind of drop down to the project funding, those are consistent, and those projects actually follow the EIC's plan and the budget that we'll talk about a little bit later for EIC. So that's a strategy. I'm not saying it's the right strategy, but it tries to factor in all the things that are there, the things that we know today, and tries to forward into a way that funds it according to the protocols that we've been discussing.
So the pay-as-you-go, the fund from the fund balances and the other sources, we don't look to do anything with till 2019. We wouldn't have anything available as this fiscal year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What interest rates do you use on these bonds? Just as, I know these are not bonds we're saying we're gonna sell, but you did some modeling with it.
We're looking at 3% on
3%.
these. Yeah, and assuming 20-year terms on these.
Any responses or questions from council? If not, I have a couple of speaker request forms for the budget item. Robert Naiman.
Robert Naiman, 1800 Glen Road. First of all, I want to apologize for some of these questions because they're probably going to be elementary and redundant. And I have spent several hours in the last week or so studying the budget, and tomorrow morning I'm going to take my first class in Greek because this is difficult. And so I want to thank both Mr. Parton and all the people in the city who've done all this work. My first question is, I wanted to ask you on the $1.9 million on the operating that goes into the general fund. And you said that was from that's from management and salaries, is that correct? And administrative? That's coming from the water sewer fund?
There's a variety of departments and operations that serve the utility operations. Some of it's administrative, some of it's operational. So IT, legal, administration provides, for example, I'd had some management oversight. HR processes all your personnel. You've got finance, which oversees, operations, which includes your meter techs, your field work, customer service, customer billing.
Mr. Parton, I'm sorry, but they can't hear you. Do you have a mic or something?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat all that?
No, I use city attorney, secretary, city administrator, human resources, finance, and IT, and I got like about $1.5 million. That's kind of their salaries, under in this budget. So how much, what percentage of anyone's salary is it? It's kind of it may be 20, 30, 40% of their salary is dedicated to the water sewer department, something to that effect?
Correct. Yeah, it's looking at departments, looking at what portion of the resource of that department in total goes towards supporting the utility fund, utility operations.
Okay. When was the last time that we had to use money from the reserve fund for the general fund? I think it's about $6.4 million right now. Have we had to go into it in the last few years?
No, sir, we haven't.
Okay.
We've done planned drawdowns to do projects such as purchasing equipment. We have had opportunities where we've had additional resources in our general fund. We've discussed and we've utilized and leveraged those to do other things instead of things you might sell debt for. For example, Central Fire Station expansion and renovation. That was about $700,000 that we were able to utilize additional reserve funds and unallocated reserves from the general fund to cover those things. We've bought equipment, we've done various things with that. So we have a policy, we've established a threshold of 25% of recurring operating expenses as our target reserve. We don't want to build up too large of a reserve in our funds, and so where we have unmet needs or other capital projects and priorities that have either been deferred or identified, then we can target to make some of those one-time capital improvements or expenditures utilizing those funds. We don't want to utilize savings or those unrestricted reserves for recurring expenditures.
Okay. Hopefully this will educate some of the public too. My understanding is that pretty much all the money goes into a big pool, and then it's distributed out various accounts, either general fund or water and sewer funds. Is it similar, something like that?
Not quite.
Okay.
We have various funds that have their own
Cash accounts.
but we can pull funds within a fund, if you will. So
Okay. Let me ask you this: if you have a fund for, say, the golf account fund, and you budgeted $200,000 for 2017, and you only spent $100,000 in that fund for that year. Would that $100,000 stay in that fund for the next fiscal year, or would it go back to zero and that money would stay in the cash fund?
Well, that's part of the general fund, and so that would be swept into the overall city unreserved balance. And so if we have, for whatever reason, not realized the budget expenditures, we sweep those over into a fund balance in the general fund. Utility fund side, if we haven't spent funds there, then those get swept over into the utility fund undesignated reserve account on that side. So based on primary fund and function, but you know, there's not a balance of funds that we keep for the golf course. You say, well, you didn't spend your 50 stays in that golf course.
Okay.
It goes to the general fund.
I'll make this, I'll get going a little quicker. You have account 306 and, you know, various accounts which are special services. And for example, and if you don't know this right now, you know, we can shoot me an email or something, because I don't expect you to know. But like there's 150,000 in planning, and I think in the parks, and then there's a that's just in what's called special services, and there wasn't anything the year before. Do you have any idea what that's for, or do you want to look that up?
306 in planning is $150,000 to rewrite and update the city's comprehensive plan. The special services, about $45,000 in the park fund, goes towards our contract labor. Our former parks director is now working with us on a contract on a part-time basis, and he is overseeing the management of our sports complex project.
Send him out to take care of my yard.
Also,
Listen, and one other thing, parks maintenance is $41,000 this year, special, which was pretty much nothing the year before. Is that because of the sports complex, do you think, or not?
No,
or is that just general
that's additional costs that we're assuming with River Trail, with some of our other parks improvements. We have additional park maintenance costs that we're factoring into there.
Do we have an estimate? I believe that the maintenance for the sports complex is about $297,000 budgeted for 2017. Do we have a any kind of pro forma as to, or estimate as to when at some point, how many years down the line, that we would be able to have revenues to offset that maintenance, or do we not think we'll ever make the revenues for that?
Well, we've got we have a lease with BTP Baseball Joint Ventures. That lease has a payment, or a lease payment amount, for a building and land of about $168,000 a year. It's an incentivized lease, so if they bring in business, then their lease payments get reduced. But the reason is that we had run an analysis to look at what the indirect revenues back to the city might be in sales tax and those other resource streams. So that will offset a portion of that. And then, you know, we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30,000, $40,000 additional a year that will come in for other facility uses that are there. So, you know, you may be looking, you know, initially over the next few years, about $100,000 deficit, you know, for operating expenses when you look at capital and you look at payroll and personnel that's there.
Okay. That come from the general fund?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then on the there's an entry of $6.34 million from the operating transfers. Oh, this isn't, now I'm switching to the water fund now. The $6.34 million. I think you already said $4 million was for capital, for debt-ish payment of debt and interest. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then is the 1.8 million, 1.9 million that we discussed earlier in that 6.3 million number? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to verify that. And then let me ask you, we have a large overage in the water fund of about 4.7 million over the 25% that you have historically used, which is, so that's 150% greater than the 3 million that we need. Are there planned capital expenses to use that money now, or why are you withholding that money at this point?
Well, if you remember, the chart I showed shows that
I don't.
That beautiful green line that was so high is coming down. So the next 10 years,
I know that.
we're planning to utilize really the balance of that cash. So
how did that balance get built up? I mean, how did that was allowed to happen over the last? Because I noticed it's between 65 and 68% for the last 3 or 4 years. Has that been the plan all along?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, because we've looked at our capital needs and our programming, so those are needed for our capital.
Thank you.
Mr. Barton, the drawdown from the general fund reserve, is that about $1.4 million in the general fund?
I'm sorry, what are we referring to?
The drawdown, I believe you talked about the reserve between 16 and 17's budget. Did you mention that?
Can you refer to me what page
Actually,
you're
it
trying to,
doesn't
please?
show one. I thought you spoke about a drawdown. Oh, water and sewer doesn't have one. In the, pardon? Of the reserve fund.
Right.
In
yeah,
the general
we've got,
fund.
Yeah, we've got, sorry, can you?
The
can you make sure we're
amount,
talking?
the amount of that we're reducing of the reserve.
You're talking about water, sewer?
I'm sorry, general fund, page 59, I think. So the beginning fund balance, in other words, the difference is what, about $1.4 million between 16 and 17?
Well, we're looking at ending fund balance in 15 of 6.8 roughly, 6,785,822. We have a balanced budget in 16, so that if revenues and expenditures hit, that's 6,785,822. And then we show estimated dropping to 6,645,000 when you look at actual. And remember, we had utilized part of that reserve fund, about 160,000 budgeted, that went towards the design for the indoor athletic building. So that building is under design right now. And then you can see in 17 we have a balanced budget on the general fund side, so that's 6,645,442.
Did anybody else wish to speak on the budget? Was there anyone? I didn't have Ms. McKay.
Peggy McKay, P.O. Box 2914, 291464, Kerrville, Texas 78029. I would like to know what the downtown water feature is that sports a $250,000 price tag. It just said downtown water feature.
Right. EIC has considered funding various capital projects over a 5-year window. Part of that included some improvements for downtown streetscape enhancements, and one of those items included $250,000 to do a water feature for downtown as part of downtown streetscape enhancement.
Has it been designed, or is it, I mean, did they have something in mind to know that it would be a $250,000?
Yeah, it was a small fountain, and it was consistent with a scope and size of project that we had observed through a company that does water feature projects such as this.
And this is by the downtown advisory group that recommended it, did you say? I didn't hear the first part.
Yes, it's the Economic Improvement Corporation had contemplated that.
Oh, the EIC.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Speaking of the EIC, on the Series 2011 and 2012 bonds that relate to the river trail, and the Series 2015 for the sports complex, the debt service on all three of those, not the principal, but just the debt service payment, do I understand that it's over $1 million in
Yes, ma'am.
debt service?
Yes, ma'am.
Every year?
About 1.1.
Okay. And all of these bonds were certificates of obligation, which means that the voters were bypassed when the project's financing was approved. I would prefer that when we have projects of this magnitude, that the voters have a chance to vote on it. Do they want more money on hand before the approval? Not that the project is bad, but when we pay that much out in interest, it handicaps us in spending it in something else. All of the projects are quality of life projects, and as far as I can tell, you had no idea if the voters approved of it because they were not asked if they wanted a certificate of obligation or if they wanted a referendum vote. And to me, these are all wants, they're not needs. And I would like to hear from the taxpayers if they want to have that indebtedness for quality of life projects, or would they prefer to have them for infrastructure? Infrastructure seems to me to be more of a need, and the quality of life is certainly appreciated, but I don't know that I would put it this high on my list. But we won't know what the voters wanted because we never had the chance to voice our opinion on the indebtedness. I'm not a proponent of borrowing for once, and I believe from some of the things I have seen, Kerrville is at the top of the Texas cities for their the debt incurred. And I would be more comfortable if we were in a stronger financial position, I think it would leave us more wiggle room and give us more choices, particularly if an unforeseen problem occurs and we don't have that money. Is that 4 minutes on this one? Or I'm almost finished. May I have?
It's up to council.
How much more would you need? A minute?
It's about 2 minutes. It's regarding the audit that we just had, items in that audit that pertain to budgeting.
Council?
Is that related to the budget tonight?
It's related to the budget because of indebtedness. It'll take me 1 minute.
Don't have a motion for a minute.
Just go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. One of the things they mentioned was in the projects and the money expended that the auditors found great difficulty in following the project through and the money spent as the project progressed. And I just wondered if we couldn't have a different type of accounting system. And the other big red flag was, and I quote the auditors, current condition of the economy has deteriorated over the year. Deflationary trends occurred, not forthcoming, but occurred. And the global nature of the economy cannot be overstated. Thus, the city's revenue projections relating to budget may be optimistic, definitely not an encouragement for more debt. And also in the EIC budget, I don't know if that happens here or not, but the money that's dedicated in the letter of intent for the mains to be extended to River Hill, River Hill wouldn't be permitted because it's not open to the public.
What did you say our bond rating was?
AA.
Okay, were there any more questions from council or from the audience for item 4A? If not, item 4B? Is the first public hearing to set the 2016 ad valorem tax rate.
And I'll spare everybody the boredom of going through that presentation again. But again, the tax rate is a reflection of the tax levy that's required to be able to fund the budget that we have presented. And so again, this is a public hearing tonight to receive public input. The city's plan, as stated in our strategies, and I presented in the budget presentation, in addition to the notice that the city council advised to put out, specified the city council is looking to establish a tax rate of up to $56.25 per $100. So that's $56.25 per $100 evaluation for maintenance and operations and interest and sinking. So, Mayor, Council, turn it back to you.
Okay, and this is a public hearing to set the rate. I believe it's self-explanatory. It's been proposed at staying the same at .5625 per 100. Were there any comments, questions from council?
No.
How about from the public? This is the public hearing. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:25, reopen and reconvene back into regular session. Item number 5A is an ordinance altering the prima facie speed limit on State Highway 534
Mayor,
or Veterans.
I think we actually have to schedule the second public hearing, according to the notes at the back.
It's,
I think we need to set, unless we've already set it, and I missed it, but it says that we need to set it for the September, call an
okay, it
official
didn't
public
say
hearing.
an action, but
We've already set it through that ordinance, pardon me, the resolution
The
you all
resolution
adopted
that we
last.
Okay,
Last
because
time.
it just said recommended action, and that's what I was going by. It said recommended action, set it for the 13th.
okay, it's been in the paper, yeah. Okay, so item 5A, the first reading of the ordinance to alter the prima facie speed limit on Highway 534, Veterans Highway, from approximately 3,100 feet north of its intersection with Vista Ridge Drive, continuing in a mostly southerly direction to approximately 700 feet south of its intersection with Beach Street, such distance equal to 2.879 miles, reducing said speed limit to 55 miles an hour, establishing a school zone for a portion of the distance, authorizing installation of appropriate signs and markings, containing a savings and severability clause, providing for a maximum penalty of fine $200 and ordering publication. Mr. Burrow?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Real quick, before I get started on the recommended action, I had said that the public hearing was to occur. That is not the case. Mr. Hayes confirmed that this afternoon. So this is ordinance 2016-13. It's a first reading for the modification of the speed limit. As you see on the exhibit that we've blown up here, this is the area that is currently 60 mile an hour between, really it's closer to Stone Ledge Drive for the summit and Beach Street near the wastewater plant. With this, TxDOT has done the study, the engineering and traffic investigation for this area. It's approximately 3 miles with the about a 0.4 mile section for a school zone. TxDOT, after the study, has recommended decrease in the speed limit overall to 55 miles an hour and implementing the school zone during designated hours at 35 miles an hour. Staff's recommendation is to take action for approval. And I also have Mike Boyd here with TxDOT if you have any questions.
Kyle, is there some reason why we're not going from where it changes from 40 to where it changes back to 45?
That's what this is. Right now it's 60 to 60 within that area.
So in between the 245
correct.
Speed limits, it's just 55 consistent?
Correct. Instead of going from 45 to 60, if this is implemented, it will be 55. Mr. Boyd has also said that TxDOT plans later this week to begin the signaling. So really this is almost more of an enforcement on our standards since this is a state highway. But yes, and then so the red area that you see is the current 60 mile an hour zone that will drop down to 55.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that when I was reading through it.
Yeah, that's
okay.
You know, you look at Vista Ridge and you think it's a little bit closer, but it's actually the 45s. So, any questions?
So this was actually a recommendation by TxDOT, but it's required that we pass an ordinance to approve it.
Yes, ma'am. To have any enforcement, we have to have an ordinance.
Any questions or comments by council?
Yeah, where's the signaling going to be? The signals?
The speed zone basically starts at the north end of the school and goes just a little bit south of the south end of the high school.
Okay.
It's actually about 4/10 of a mile.
Okay.
Is that the yellow?
I believe it goes south partly because there's 2 other driveways to the south.
Yes, that's the yellow on the depicted
on your map.
Okay, yeah. Are there any plans to do any additional lights out there?
No, sir.
Okay.
Any questions or comments by the members of the audience? If all the questions are answered, then I would entertain a motion on ordinance number 2016-13.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Item 6A is the interlocal agreement for the continued existence of a joint airport board to provide management of the Kerrville Kerr County Airport. This is an agreement that we have met to discuss. It was the terms of which were expiring. So Ms. Yarbrough and Mr. Andrew and myself met to review the agreement prior to meeting with the representatives from the county. Representatives of Kerrville and Kirk County have met now to negotiate the terms of a new interlocal agreement for the management and operations of the Kerrville-Kirk County Municipal Airport. We have the draft that Mr. Hayes did for us attached. There were several changes, and those are noted by blue additions or red deleted lines. I believe all of you have had a chance to review those, and the only thing that we did not have included prior to tonight's meeting, but now you should have, is the Exhibit A, which is the updated map of the airport property showing the additional properties that were added. Exhibit B is not in your packets, but there were no changes. Mr. McKenzie is here, manager of the airport, if there's, I guess, any questions about any of those items. We're in agreement. I believe the county passed their agreement this yesterday morning, and so I'm asking if you've reviewed it and if there are no questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Any questions or comments from council?
Move approved, Mayor.
All right, I've had a motion to approve the interlocal agreement for the existence of Joint Airport Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 6B is an interlocal agreement between the City of Kerrville, Kirk County, and Upper Guadalupe River Authority to hire an engineering firm to evaluate flooding risk for Kirk County and provide recommendations. As a little history on this item, I don't see Commissioner Moser, but in response to the flash flooding and numerous flood-related tragedies in and around our state in recent months, Commissioner Moser of Kirk County Commissioners Court has endeavored to pursue a county-wide early flood warning system for residents and visitors of Kirk County. In July, Commissioner Moser assembled a group of participants from various entities, which included representatives from UGRA, Kirk County, the City of Ingram, TxDOT, the City of Kerrville, and GrantWorks to discuss the feasibility and the necessity of investigating such a system. Pursuant to the steering committee meetings, Commissioner Moser and Ray Buck of UGRA, who is here tonight, prepared an interlocal agreement regarding a Kirk County flood warning system, a copy of which, this is the engineering study, ILA, a copy of which is attached in your packets. If you have had a chance to review the interlocal agreement, Mr. Buck is here to answer any questions you might have. Basically, the parties that were mentioned desire to mutually retain a professional engineering consultant to undertake an engineering study to evaluate the feasibility, cost, and implementation of a flood warning system in Kirk County, Texas. And what they wish to do, and I will let Mr. Buck also expound on this, they prepared, he and Commissioner Moser, a request for qualification to retain a professional engineering consultant to analyze a number of things: data collection, identifying, prioritizing low water crossings, evaluate high water detection system components, evaluate software and communications, and estimate cost and funding options, and then prepare a summary report of that. That study was set, if you look on page 5, your cost of engineering study is up to $50,000. There was decided, or there was suggested, that there be a split of those fees. Kirk County agreed to fund 40% of that project. UGRA is going to, I believe, agree to fund 40%. City of Ingram was at 5%. They have decided to not participate in the program. We were originally asked to participate at 15%, so they would like for us, if we agree to participate, to absorb that, and our portion would be 20% of those engineering study expenses. By the way, those expenses, according to Commissioner Moser, would be, they've worked with GrantWorks to try to roll that into also the hazard mitigation plan. And if approved, they would possibly refund 75%, I believe it is, of those fees. What did I miss, Mr. Buck?
Mayor, council, staff, Ray Buck with UGRA for the record.
the genesis of this problem began a number of years ago. If you've been here any length of time, you remember the school bus washing off the river crossing at Comfort. At that time, EDRA took a step forward and put in a rainfall monitoring system as part of a big global type of area-wide flood warning system. There's 22 rainfall monitor systems in Kerr County alone. We pay $5,000 a year currently to GBRA, the Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, to maintain these rainfall monitors in Kerr County. We question the usefulness of those, and is there a need to go further and maybe upgrade our flood warning system so that we don't have another tragedy or try to prevent another tragedy in Kerr County. Mr. Lampman and Mr. Smith are here, Chief Smith are here. We've met with them, and currently the city of Kerrville, our city fire department, the only entity that uses the rainfall monitoring system that we pay for. And so we wanted to see, is there a way to make it more comprehensive to allow the Kerr County Emergency Management Coordinator and the Sheriff's Office to utilize this information. Out of that meeting, we decided that we really need to do a complete assessment of flood warning in Kerr County. How can all of the entities work together to prevent another tragedy? So with that said, that's the genesis of the ILA and the steering group that we put together. We're looking at a 40-40-20 split of not to exceed $50,000. That's $20,000 UGRA, $20,000 from the county, and $10,000 from the city to do this initial assessment study, which will be the basis for a grant to actually implement whatever we decide to do at that point.
I have one question. If we do participate in the study, is this somehow committing us to participating in a much wider, once you do the, okay, you're saying no?
There's an opt-out clause, I believe,
Okay.
in this.
Yes.
If you participate in the study and it comes back and you find that it's, something
This
that
is
you don't
simply
approve.
an assessment study.
Right.
It's not the implementation.
Okay. And the second question is, it comes back to the age-old thing that citizens in the city of Kerrville already pay county taxes. So we're already paying for this once, so we're being asked to pay for it twice. So I just question our involvement as far as the funding of it. And I know this is age-old, no one's snipping at each other's heels, but I mean, if this is truly a county-wide system, it should be a county project or UGRA project.
Well, I don't disagree,
And,
but let me state this, and I know Mr. Lampman wasn't there, but at Commissioner's Court, I spoke to commissioners about scrapping this rainwater monitoring network.
Yeah.
And at that time, Tony Leonard said, absolutely not. That's what we rely on in the city.
Right.
So we are paying for the city, and it's not being beneficial to the county. So how do we do that?
Except
That's the
that
question.
the city responds in the county when something goes wrong, so you are.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we
so,
go. I think we're all in this boat together.
And I respect Ingram's right to opt out, but on the last page, then I would say they shouldn't get approval on the ILA. This page right here, Mayor. Item 4.
Yeah,
I'm not-
this was just a proposed plan of action which was added later in your, where are you seeing that?
Item 4.
The last page.
Okay, well, they meant to take all
That
of
should
those
go
out.
out, right?
Yeah, and this was just that, this is not part of the ILA, this is just a proposed plan of
understand.
action, that I put in.
I understand.
So
I
that
just-
you'd understand, yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah, they are not choosing to participate, that's correct.
Right. So they don't get to vote.
That's correct.
Agreed.
So, any questions, any comments? Any questions or comments from the audience? And the reason I put it on the agenda is Commissioner Moser had asked us to go to the steering committee meetings as our city representatives did. And I appreciate the time and effort that was put into this concern, and certainly in the light of everything that's happened lately around this nation, it's a concern that we need to be proactive on, and whether it's all of us as a joint county project. I just gave him the courtesy of telling him that we would put this on here, and if council does not wish to participate, then that's what we're here for this evening.
I move for approval of this item as long as it is not committing us to being involved in the long-term funding on the project itself. I don't mind participating in the study, of it, of the engineering, but I don't want to make sure we're being committed to a potentially multi-million-dollar project that, I mean, we don't have that many low water crossings actually in the city itself. I'm not saying we don't care about what happens outside the city, but we truly don't have that many of them actually in the city where this is as big as of a concern.
And Stephen, I was at that meeting too, and it was a great presentation, and our fire department does count heavily on these readings.
No, I understand.
So I'll second your motion, but I fully support the idea of the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there is an opt-out. You know, once the numbers come back from the engineering study, then yeah, you don't have to participate in the program itself.
Okay.
That's right.
And it doesn't tie us to these percentages in the future.
That's correct.
Okay.
Those can be adjusted.
As long as
you're
it
right.
doesn't tie us to the percentages.
No,
then-
that's a good question, and no, it does not. So
And we've got the funds to pull from.
And Mr. Barton, would we have the $10,000? There is the reason that I think Mr. Allen is asking is because however, I do know that Commissioner Moser said that they didn't necessarily, they were going to have to pull some strings, I think he said, to try to fund this in this fiscal year. So I guess your question should be directed to Mr. Barton.
Do you have any idea where we'll get those funds? Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right, with those questions answered, we have, I'm sorry, Mayor?
Again, Jack Pratt, 105 Deerwood. I want to speak a little bit further on Councilman Fine's comments about double taxation. You didn't use those words, but I will. Okay. This is a countywide project, and the city residents pay county taxes. And therefore, they're already paying for this project if this county goes ahead with it. And I don't see any reason for the city to participate financially. The city can participate in whatever support is needed other than financial, because we're already paying taxes on it. Now, having said that, if you decide to go ahead and pass it, there was a mention of $5,000 a year, or what was the figure that you mentioned about Tony Leonard saying it was cost?
I think Mr. Buck made the comment.
It was $5,000 that we pay per year for agreement with GBRA for a rainwater monitoring network.
Then if you decide to go ahead with it, then that $5,000 savings should come back to the city to reimburse them for the funds that they've already funded up front to eliminate the double taxation. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the audience? If not, I'm sorry, Mr. Hart, come to the podium, please identify.
Mayor and council for Robert Hurt, actually reside in Mountain Home. I'm very much aware of several drownings and near drownings that have occurred in the county in my lifetime. I believe every situation has been remedied with a much higher bridge. So for whatever that's worth. For example, I had a good friend that washed off at Shriner and Town Creek. That bridge is much higher now. He survived. But anyway, I think the Comfort Bridge has been raised significantly, just for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further comments or questions. We have a motion and we have a second, I believe, to enter into the interlocal agreement between the City of Kerrville, Kirk County, Upper Guadalupe River Authority. All in favor, please raise your hand. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Buck, and all of you for your comments. Item 6C is a community survey through the National Citizen Survey to conduct a community-wide public opinion survey on 8 key areas of community liability, including public safety, infrastructure, recreation, community engagement. Caitlin, are you taking this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. In an effort to better understand and execute the vision that citizens have for the city of Kerrville, staff has been researching potential options for gathering comprehensive scientific feedback from residents, and our hope is that feedback can be used to direct city priorities moving into the future. Through our research, one option made available through the National Research Center stands out as a particularly desirable option for gathering such input from citizens. This customizable survey, known as the National Citizen Survey, is considered the gold standard of community assessments and is the only survey that is currently endorsed by the International City County Management Association. So a little bit more about how the survey works. The survey measures public opinion in 8 key areas of community livability, all of which are shown on the diagram on the screen. As you can see, some of the areas the survey assesses include public safety, recreation and wellness, and mobility and infrastructure, just to name a few. If you take a look at the sample survey questions that are provided in your packet from the National Research Center, you can see just how in-depth the questions are in each of these areas. You can also see how detailed the data is that we would receive by looking at the sample survey report that was also provided in your packets. In each area, residents are asked to report their perceptions about the quality of their community and these services, and also provide feedback on which areas they consider to be most important in terms of quality of life. The survey also provides valuable information about how engaged residents are within the community. For example, if they regularly use parks and recreation facilities, visit the library, or attend certain city-sponsored events. In the sample results report you've received in your packets, you can also see how thoroughly all that survey data is broken down. The data can provide valuable insight on what city services residents consider to be a priority and where they would like to see city resources directed in the future. So a little bit about the basic survey service that's offered. The National Citizen Survey's basic service would send a customized service, much like the sample that's been provided to you, by mail to 1,500 households in the city. The service also provides the opportunity for anyone who is not selected to participate in that mail scientific survey to offer his or her thoughts through an opt-in survey online. This survey measures participants' perceptions using the same form that's been provided to you. However, the opt-in results will stay completely separate of those scientific mail results. That's really important to maintaining the scientific integrity of the overall survey. But it does give anyone within the Kerrville city limits the opportunity to weigh in if they have feedback that they would like the city of Kerrville to be aware of. The basic service also offers the city the opportunity to customize questions and reporting options to address our specific needs. The city would have about half a page to work with to create customized questions, and depending on the length of each question, this provides the city with an additional 6 to 8 questions to get citizen input on very specific topics. The basic survey is completed by a representative cross-section of the population to ensure a higher degree of accuracy than many other methods that are available. And this methodology is very important, and one of the main reasons we have selected the National Citizen Survey as a means to pursue. And I will explain more on that methodology in a moment because it is important.
Caitlin, I'm sorry to interrupt right there, but you mentioned customized survey, half a page, 6 to 8 questions. Are those open-ended questions, or?
Those are they're similar in format to the ones that you see already with the multiple choice. I'll get more to the customization options in a little bit. Open-ended is an option that we can choose to include, but it is an extra fee in order to include an open-ended question. So yeah, I will address some of those customization options. More about the basic service. It also allows the city to track results and response rates from the survey by geographic area in the city, which lends additional valuable insight not available through many other means. And finally, by participating through the National Research Center, the city of Kerrville's survey results could also be benchmarked against more than 500 other citizen survey results, lending more valuable insight as to how the city of Kerrville compares to other municipalities nationwide. So on that methodology, which is very important. To ensure the most scientifically accurate results possible, the National Research Center will be in charge of disseminating and collecting all of the survey results. Having that third party conduct the survey process is really important in ensuring the overall integrity of those results. In order to select households to participate in the survey, the NRC will first coordinate with the city's geographic information system to determine all zip codes that the city serves. From there, the NRC randomly orders a group of addresses within the zip code from the post office, and then they geocode those addresses to ensure first that they fall within the city limits, and then also to ensure all areas of the city are fairly represented. They don't want to have all the surveys just from one particular area. So the geocoding helps with that. Again, it is important to ensure that we hear from all members of the community, something that otherwise can be difficult to ensure with other survey means. And once all of those things have been verified by the NRC, they randomly select which 1,500 households will receive a survey by mail. Also, the survey that is sent out by mail, it can be completed in one of two ways. Residents can choose to either complete the paper copy and mail it back to the NRC, or they can complete the survey online following a link that's provided on that mail-out copy, so whatever their preference is. Even if that survey is completed online, those results are kept completely separate from the other opt-in survey results online. There are two separate links that would be sent out because keeping those separate is really important, again, to the integrity of keeping the survey scientific. Each household selected to participate will be contacted 3 times total in order to encourage maximum participation in the survey, and the initial survey will be sent along with 2 reminder postcards after that to encourage maximum participation. And according to the NRC, this method ensures a random scientific sample of the population for participation, which is key to producing the reliable results that the city can use. So now on to those customization options. Like I mentioned, there are several options for customizing the survey to best fit the city of Kerrville's needs. There are the 6 to 8 customizable multiple choice questions that are built into the basic survey, and several other questions that are shown in the sample can be slightly modified or removed if they're just not applicable to the city of Kerrville, but there are some limits on that. The city also has the option to enlarge the sample size from the base 1,500 households, but for an additional fee. An additional 300 to 1,500 households could be added to the base sample size, which could potentially increase the number of responses that the city will receive, but I'll talk about a little bit more about that and what the city would need in terms of responses to have a statistically significant survey in a moment. The city also has the option to send an extra reminder card, a 4th contact about completing the survey, or to add an open-ended question or multiple open-ended questions if we would like to the survey. Okay, so the margin of error is important here with the option to expand the sample size in mind. I just wanted to explain how many responses the city of Kerrville would need to receive in order to get statistically significant results from the survey. Based on a population of about 25,000, which is slightly larger than Kerrville's current population, the city would need to receive between 379 and 585 responses to have a margin of error of 5%. Clearly, the more responses we receive, the better the margin of error, but as long as that margin of error is around the 5%, the survey is considered statistically significant. And according to the National Research Center, the average response rate for the sample size of 1,500 households is typically between 300 and 400 responses. Including an additional reminder postcard may help increase that. Increasing the sample size could potentially increase that. But however many households receive the survey, there's no way to know exactly how many responses the city of Kerrville would get back, which is part of the reason why staff is seeking direction from council tonight on which options to pursue with the survey. Now on to the question about how much does it cost. In your packets, you'll find several sample invoices that have been created based on various customizable options. Because the City of Kerrville is a member of the International City-County Management Association, it does qualify for a discount on the regular survey pricing. So for Kerrville, the cost for the base survey of the 1,500 households would be $13,860. If council would like to direct staff to pursue other customized add-ons, a few additional prices have also been listed here and on those invoices in your packets. The options listed here includes the larger sample size or customizable open-ended questions, just to give you an idea of that overall cost if one of those options is desired. There are just a few options that the NRC provided to us just to give us the cost, but we could do any of the customizable options. The prices just might vary a little. Now, to give you an idea on timing, how long this whole process takes, once the process is initiated and a contract approved, the entire survey process should take about 17 weeks to complete on average. As you see from the timeline, residents are given 5 weeks to complete and return the survey, and then a draft of the results are actually available about 3 weeks later. So if the city can initiate everything for the survey by September 1st, we could most likely have the results in hand by the end of this year, which would be really useful for planning as we enter the new year. So again, just an overview why we're looking at this National Citizen Survey. It's a very attractive tool for evaluating citizen satisfaction with city services and the overall quality of life. There are many options out there for gathering citizen input. In fact, modern technology lends itself very well to that, but this particular method excuse me, is scientific, the data is reliable, and generated by a third party. And the survey method also ensures all areas of the community are given an opportunity to weigh in. So although online surveys can often be very convenient, they aren't always effective in reaching all segments of the community and generating an accurate picture of the community's desires. So the goal of this survey is to gather input from an array of citizens in the Kerrville community and to better understand and direct city policy moving forward. Additionally, the results are comparable to hundreds of other municipalities nationwide and provides an excellent opportunity to gain additional insight, which can help the city grow and improve. So with that in mind, I can answer any questions council may have, or am happy to take direction on how to proceed with the survey.
Tonight I heard we need citizen input. I heard referendum mentioned. I think anything we can do to get citizen input would be good. Do it scientifically would be good. So I love this idea. And we had talked at EIC about maybe submitting some questions about the Olympic pool and you know, what do our neighbors want to see happen to that. Or maybe the school's involvement in the pool or something like that. So I love this whole idea.
Any other thoughts from council? Questions?
I'm just going to say, seldom does an old engineer who used to do a lot of statistical signal processing find some of this pretty groovy stuff. You know, all the confidence intervals and all those sorts of things. The only reason that's relevant is the point that I support this strongly versus what we will consider a non-scientific poll, because statistical significance, randomness, confidence intervals, error margins, and all those are the only thing that's relevant. If you don't have those, you might as well not do the survey. Otherwise, you're just getting a totally biased. And then the second aspect of this that I support strongly is the pure, unbiased questions. We create questions. We're going to create biased questions no matter what. They're professionals at this. And the third is the ability to compare to other cities to learn, because their database gives them an enormous amount of information. So I strongly support this expenditure. While I'd rather not do it money-wise, it's well worth it. What we learn and the citizens' input is highly valued. So I strongly support what you're proposing here, Caitlin.
I agree with everything he said except being an old engineer. So.
So out of 1,500 households, maybe you'll get a response rate of 300 to 400 for $13,860. If you add $300 to that, you get $1,800 for $15,147. I don't know, but my opinion is people are a little bit maybe wary with some of these surveys. We have 3 outstanding ones now. I'm sure we'll get answers on soon. Nimitz Lake and TCEQ report. We've got a $200,000 comprehensive plan to contemplate and $150,000 wastewater master plan. If we should, and my thought, and I haven't put it on the agenda because we are so burdened, as we can see tonight, with other things that we have, but I really strongly believe that we should have an ad hoc committee for a project advisory group. Some of these questions going through the survey, I don't know, that's why I asked Caitlin about how much customization we could do. Didn't seem applicable to us. They were sort of redundant. There's different categories. But that was just my thought about the survey questions themselves. Other than that, I believe we had a speaker request from Mr. Kraft. Did you want to speak? Are you here? Thank you.
You as well. Good evening, everybody. My name is James Kraft, James Bruce Kraft. I reside at 2783 Bandera Highway, have for about 65 years. I did look through this, and the first time that it came up on the council's agenda, I believe a couple meetings ago, and it concerned me because not necessarily the amount, I presume, that is being spent here, but there's also, I think, an alternative way to be able to do this. And you'll see points that I put in here as far as for my perception onto it and what I believe. And I think the council really needs to take a look at this. Particularly, one of the things that bothers me is that the small amount of responses that you're looking at for the number of surveys that they do. Right now, I did a little looking at the U.S. Census, and there's about 9,500 households in Kerrville. And if you take a look at that, and you look at what I have in there, you'll see that based on 400 responses, that it's a pretty small percentage of the actual households in Kerrville that you're canvassing, that you're surveying. So I see that as a problem. You're letting 4% or so, 5% of the households in Kerrville actually dictate to you what they think is going on in Kerrville. And I think you can get a much better response in that by conducting a survey yourself, doing it online, which I have done several of these, not this particular kind, but surveys otherwise. And I think you'll get a better response, but that's just my opinion, just from previous experiences that I had. So I think that you'd be better off looking at a different way of doing this than for the $13,000 or so now. I think you're talking about $15,000. And you basically, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, but you get a pre-digested set of questions that go out to people. And I presume that the council has read through all of this and has looked at all the questions that are in here. I did. I'm not sure that people are going to respond to this and actually fill out the survey very well, but that's just my opinion. And there's a lot of questions in there that I believe really, as the mayor had said, that don't pertain to our particular community. So all in all, I'm just recommending that the council take an additional look at this before you actually make a decision on what you want to do, to see if there isn't a possibility that you can garner better information from questions that you specifically made. And I know it was mentioned that regardless of what you do, they're going to be biased, but I don't believe that's true. I think that actually folks in the city can be unbiased about things and present questions that are pertinent to our community to get the responses that we want to try to get for the data we want to put together. So that's pretty much, my take on it. And you have the information. Ms. Berry, I'd be happy to sit down with you if you want to for an opportunity to talk about the different opportunity that there is for an online survey that you do, which is going to be a lot less costly. I mean, for $500 a year, including the labor of the city personnel, you can actually run a survey like that. So that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Kraft, I received your email on that and kind of just casually looked around on online surveys. And our newspapers sometimes do online surveys, and you can tell that when people get excited about an online survey. And I think Ms. Caitlin is talking more about the scientific approach so that we can get.
Yeah, that's all it well, but those
objective.
are marketing words. You really can't prove that. You can't. It's subjective, and you can't prove it. And they're good marketing words for gold standards and scientific.
Okay. I appreciate your input.
I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm all for getting, I believe, number one, I believe this is something that's resonated now for over a year, that we do need to have input from the citizens. And as Mr. Parton mentioned earlier, you know, with where we are in our funding, available funding, we definitely have to prioritize that. I had one other thought, and I didn't know if it's true economic development, but if EIC would want to participate in at least a portion of it, it was just a side thought, because that is what they do. They do fund economic improvement projects, so that was just a thought.
Are you suggesting that we make a request to EIC to see if they'll fund this?
Well, it's a thought, even if partially they would. They
mean,
have some set aside funds.
I'm okay with it. I'm just asking if that's, if you're.
How long will that delay it?
Well, we could go ahead and fund it and then ask them to, we could go ahead and approve it and ask them to fund part of it. There's no reason to stop. I think it's important to move forward one way or the other. There's nothing that says we can't ask for funding post-decision, Gene.
I don't know about that. Did you wish to speak, Mr. Neiman? Quickly?
Robert Neiman, 1800 Glen Road. Mr. Andrew, you make a good point about trying to find out what the margin of error is and things like that. But it just struck me, if we send out 1,500 and it's geographically diverse, I mean, if you look at the economics of this town, without being cruel, we've got about 50% of the people in lower income, and a lot of those people are not going to respond. Are not going to respond to this. So what I'm getting at is the margin of error. It starts to get wider and wider as people in better, higher dollar geographic locations, higher education standards are going to be more inclined to answer this survey. And so to me that distorts the survey, and you're not getting a whole community representation, just like we had an ad hoc committee in the past that I think was somewhat distorted. Others would disagree. Thank you.
With all due respect, this group does hundreds of surveys, and that certainly is one of their concerns, is economic distribution, geographic distribution, and I put a lot of faith in what those kind of decisions. I understand your point, Robert, but having done a lot of statistics, and to the answer, 375 is significant. Think about how few people they call to get this number, how you're going to vote, and how accurate those are. It's a way less percentage than what we're talking about here. So statistics are a strange thing.
I just have a comment.
Mike Siegerman, please.
I'm Mike Siegerman. I live at 4000 Comanche Trace Drive. My comment would be to you guys as the representatives of the 25 or 24 or 22,000 people that live in Kerrville, and you're going to do a survey and you want to find out what the people's thoughts are and what this community needs, and you have over 9,000 households in the city of Kerrville, and you want to send out 1,500 surveys, and then the other 7,500 households that don't get invited to express their opinions on what's needed in the city of Kerrville, how do you answer them? How do you answer all of those households that you're saying, we're not really interested in what you have to think, whether you do it scientifically or geographically or whatever it is. You've got over 9,000 households in the city of Kerrville, and you want to send out 1,500 surveys so you can get a scientific, however you want to word it. But if I'm a citizen of Kerrville and I don't get a survey sent to me, I'm at the next council meeting and I want to know why you weren't interested in my opinion. That's my comment.
There actually is a web opt-in that you can answer the exact same questions that those numbers will be calculated also. So, I mean, they'll be done separately, but they will also be counted. So
Let me ask you about that.
Again, I'm saying you're going to send out 1,500 surveys to over 9,000 households.
Yeah.
I think it's something to think about.
And again, you're back to if you do the web opt-in, you know, we've said that isn't scientific. So, you know, it may be interesting, you know, to bring these things back to the ad hoc committee. Mr. Farmer, did you have something to say?
My name's Tony Farmer, 501 Ranchero Road, Apartment A. I just had a point of clarification, a question for clarification, because so there are 1,500 households. If those households are multiple family households or a household where there's a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, how is it determined who gets to fill out that survey for that household? Because we have to take into consideration that there might be more than one person in that household. So how does it determine who gets to fill out that survey? Because really you're only surveying 1,500 individuals if you're only sending one survey per household and one person gets to fill that survey out. That was just a question that I had.
It'd be sent to head of household. Head of household. Yeah.
And you don't know who filled out, but that's.
And how, on the opt-in, how do you know who those people are? I mean, are they all in the city limits? Are they outside the city limits? Do they have to give an address, or what is the parameters on?
If you see on the back page, the last page of the survey, it has some identifying information. You fill that out too.
Okay.
That final page that is part of the mail survey and the online survey as well.
Okay.
So if there's no more questions or comments, does anyone want to make a motion? There's several options.
Can you put the options back up there? Or the ones that you had?
Well, there's a number of them. They just put some samples in
put some
here.
sample ones up there, right. I
For
just wanted to see those.
1,500, it surveys, it's 13,860. That's without any web opt-in. Are the web opt-in free?
That's free,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is included with the basic service. It's free. You don't have to do any extra for that.
So then if you go up to 1,800, it's 15,147. If you add open-ended questions, which are, I don't know how easy those are to make scientific, but it's up to 16,902.
Possible.
Yeah, right. I agree, Mr. Andrew. Those might be impossible to make scientific. Open-ended questions. So that's different than customization. So those are the three options that were given in our packet. There are other configurations according to the information that was here given.
Well, I'd like to see us move forward with at least the 1,800 households contacted. And I think we ought to have some optional questions to ask about some of the CIP projects that we have.
You have an opportunity for 6 to 8 customized questions. Is that a motion?
I'll make it a motion. I'd like to see us do invoice 3, the basic service, larger sample size, plus open-ended questions.
Plus open-ended? You want the 16,902?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of second. Item number 6D.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
I'd make a motion we do invoice 1.
Okay. We will amend.
I'll second that.
Would you like to add any language about seeking EIC funding to the motion?
I have no yeah, I'd be glad to add
Yeah.
that we ask EIC to share.
Amend the second also.
So there's a motion.
Let me just start the motion,
Okay.
withdraw my motion. I'll make a motion that we do item invoice 1 and that we ask EIC for consideration of funding or partial funding.
To be clear, that's 1,500, the National Citizen Survey basic service
Yes,
for
ma'am.
$13,860. Did you want to include the web opt-in?
It's
option?
there already.
So they do it. you
It's
don't
there
have to tell
already.
them. Okay, and submit this as an
Oh,
application. to
hang
the
on, I'm getting a whoa sign from the city
You-
manager.
Yeah, I don't think you mean EIC. Did you mean KEDC?
No.
So.
Can the EIC fund this? That's the question.
We'll have to research that, but it's an application process. I mean, there.
I mean, I'm sensitive to moving this forward and the times constraint that you all are under. I'm not really sure the EIC could do this. I believe KEDC could do this at the direction of EIC.
Okay, let me redo my motion.
Well, let me just.
No, here, I'm gonna make a motion that
Okay.
says the following.
Okay.
I move we do invoice 1, we proceed forward, we ask staff to explore EIC or KEDC to share staffing with, share funding with us.
Okay.
I second that. Alternative sources.
Is that dependent on the funding source?
No,
That's-
no ma'am.
So we do
We
it
have to do it
regardless,
ourselves.
and then we apply. Is it your motion?
That was my motion. Look for other,
To KEDC.
right, KEDC or EIC, but we're going forward.
Is that clear to you, Mr. Barton? Okay. There's been a motion and there's been a second. All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Mayor, speaking of burden that you said a minute ago, we've been here for 2 hours. Can we take a brief recess before we continue?
Would council like to take a recess, a short recess for 5 minutes? Okay, we will recess until
Thank you.
8:20. If someone could close the doors, please, and take your seats, thank you. Item 6D is consideration. We don't have Mr. Barton. He has to do this presentation, so. While Mr. Barton is coming, I may as well fill you in. You all have this in your packets, but the EIC proposed fiscal year 17 budget is debt service for the first portion of the river trail, $258,456. Second portion of the river trail, $252,863. Debt service for the athletic complex, $603,417. The development governing body, which is KEDC appropriation, is $180,000, and the administrative services fee, which goes to the city of Kerrville, is $100,000. And Category 1 business development, ED set aside, or economic development set aside, he's proposing $500,000. And do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, and again, I'm not proposing, this is what KEIC voted on
I'm sorry, yeah.
July the 18th. Okay, so a quick overview, I think the mayor hit. So revenue projection at $3.3 million. That revenue projection follows the same fiscal sustainability and revenue forecast models that we use for the total fund for the city. Again, that increases about $100,000 in revenue from this current fiscal year revenue projection. The expenditures for 17 are $4.9 million. There's a planned drawdown of about $1.6 million of their unrestricted fund balance. It still continues to fund economic development set aside, and so you'll see a balance of that fund balance being set aside for restricted purposes and continues to grow over the fiscal year, multi-year fiscal forecast that they have. again, it's looking at contemplating a number of capital improvement plans and projects that they have established through fiscal year 2022. And it is included and is referenced as part of our budget for the overall city. So y'all do need to take separate consideration and action for theirs, but it is included in your budget document. Again, as the mayor had alluded to, administration is about $1.4 million. That does include KEDC contribution of $180, which you've approved through contract. We're in year 2 of a 3-year funding agreement with them. The city does have an administrative services fee of $100,000. By law, we're not allowed to give EIC services. They have to compensate us fairly and appropriately for the administrative services that we provide. So that's attempted to recoup that estimate. Again, Category 1, business development, we've got $500,000, which is an annual set-aside. EIC board establishes a policy really a couple years back, and they wanted to be able to set aside at least $500,000 every year. If those funds weren't being utilized for a prospect that came up, then they wanted those set aside into a restricted fund that would go to economic development prospects specifically. So when we talk about the reserve balances, it is not inclusive of that amount that we built over time unless it's allocated to a prospect. Category 2, for fiscal year 17, there is quality of life. Again, we've got 17 and 18 that they had planned for $750,000 into equal set-asides to be able to do some enhancements to the tennis center. What we'd look to do is, once we get into fiscal year 17, if the budget is approved, is looking at a portion of those funds to be able to come back and start some site design and some engineering and drainage analysis. We talked to EIC about that this actually last meeting that they had last week. And again, downtown streetscape improvements, there's $250,000, which was slated for the water feature for downtown. Category 3, public infrastructure. Housing is $500,000, and so you see an allocation of $500,000 that's there every 2 to 3 years. The reason for that is in the past the city has provided grants to help with Habitat for Humanity and Home Opportunity Council to help fund improvements, either design and construction of public infrastructure that help to make some of those subdivisions happen. That's the legal allocation according to the 4B tax code. And then they're also on the public infrastructure side, and part of that $1.5 million drawdown projected is for the grant application that we're preparing to EIC to fund the distribution mains for the reclaimed water project. So they had shown 17 and 18, an allocation in 17 of 1.5, and then a plan set aside in 18 for the other portion of that as part of their funding model. Again, their budget projections assume that all those funds are allocated and are spent every year. Some of these years, you know, they've got funds that aren't spent and they roll back into their balance. The only thing that goes to restricted is that portion for ED set aside by the board policy. The rest of it's rolling back in. And so when you look at the multi-year program and you look at the multi-year balances, those are anticipating every year that all those funds are spent. And whatever those remainders are. So we think, you know, if you look at most years, there's actually a portion of that doesn't get spent that continues to build up reserve. Reviewed annually, again, just like with all our budgets, those are reviewed. They've got the 5-year fiscal and the 5-year planning, which is all rolled into, again, their comparable planning strategy and revenue strategies that we deploy for the city as a whole. Again, the unrestricted fund balance currently is projected to be $3.7 million at the start of 17 or at the end of this fiscal year. Again, planned drawdown about $3.2 million through 18. And then the projected fund balance is projected to grow back to 5.2 by the end of 2022. Again, we're accumulating the ED set aside, and you see, you know, right now 3.5 million of funds that would be set aside, either spent or collected and set aside through 2022 through the budget planning horizon. So that is an overview of the budget that was considered and approved by EIC and submitted for City Council's review and consideration.
Any questions or comments?
Just the mechanics, being a newbie on this for a specific project that's not already funded or not already voted on, they come, while this is in the budget, they will come back and we'll have a vote on each individual expenditure that they propose that hasn't already been approved by the council individually. Does that make sense?
That's correct. And I think our EIC budget's kind of unique in that they do a lot of detailed planning, they do a lot of,
Right.
of capital work and contemplation with that. But the funding allocation doesn't mean those projects are funded. Like a project we want to fund, it could be the downtown streetscape stuff. We have to make an application to them, and then they consider that and decide whether to approve that request or not. It still comes back to y'all then to then take a vote ultimately on that process. If it's a nonprofit or if it's another prospect that's out there, they make an application and they follow through the same process. There's public hearing processes. There's a 60-day window from the time you hear in a public hearing to the time that you can actually fund. So this is their plan, and then then if we launch the plan, then we step forward and move into it.
Okay, thanks,
And
Todd.
my only comment would be that we do have over $2 million between the debt service for the River Trail Athletic Complex and the tennis center, over $2 million, towards quality of life projects. And I know that in the past, more of the money went to infrastructure, and then there was a balance out of quality of life. And I would like in the future to see us kind of go back in the circumstances we're in to more true economic development, in the future. I agree, I like these projects, but I'm not sure about the water feature, but I like the others, and I just want to see it serve the purpose for which it was formed, and that's true economic development. So,
And what would that look like?
as we move forward, I know that the housing, Mr. Parton mentioned that part of that was for infrastructure, and that's good, and that's what I'd like to see it for. That definition that we have in the public infrastructure for $1.5 million for the distribution lines for the athletic field is, it does fit the definition in my book. So anything that we can do to enhance our commercial base by adding infrastructure that's needed,
Right.
I'd like to see, those kinds of projects in the future.
Yeah, we have $2 million for public infrastructure and 1.4 for debt service. So that's...
You have the tennis center and then the water feature. So there's $1 million there, and there's $1.1 million up above. So that's 2-1. And
Okay, so,
yeah.
it seems pretty balanced.
It's balanced at the moment. I'm just saying in the future,
I agree.
Let's see, did anyone, Mr. Naaman, is he still here? I think he wanted to speak to 6D.
Real quick, Robert Naaman, 1800 Glen Road. On the $500,000 for the set aside, has there been any discussion on what the money would be used for? I mean, is there anything on the planning board, or is it just, we just set it aside for now?
It's a general set aside to build up a reserve of fund in case there was a prospect that needed cash.
Okay. I noticed that there are no river trail expenditures going forward. Are we finished with the river trail, or do we have money in other accounts that we're still using, or what's the status on that?
There's still over $1 million in that project fund. There's
From
money.
the original, from the
Yes,
original
right.
6.5 or 7
It's on a
million
future
dollars.
wish list, but it's not
Okay.
actually on their budget.
Okay, and one other question. This is just a kind of a philosophical question. If the city, for whatever reason, were to, if the citizens of Kerrville were to decide to have a vote to terminate the 4B sales tax and simultaneously, well, I understand we would have to pay for the projects currently funded, and simultaneously take that 0.5% and roll it back into our sales tax that would go directly to the city. Are there any projects that the city could not do if we had that money that the EIC is doing now? Is there anything that would preclude us from doing any of these projects if we had the money directly in city hands instead of through the EIC?
You would actually have more flexibility on each of those funds than you do, because 4B is very restricted.
Thank you very much. You made my day.
Any more questions or comments from the audience or from council? If not, is there a motion on item number 6D?
Move for approval.
A second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the EIC 2017 budget. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Item number 6E is review and discussion of public comments made by elected officials regarding the river trail. I would like to introduce this item with a statement, and that would be that I feel it would be appropriate and necessary to preface this discussion with an advisement to the council members and to the members of this audience who may wish to speak to this agenda item that due to the nature of the remarks that were made by Councilman Stark, which precipitated this particular agenda item, I have retained legal counsel who will preserve and analyze any remarks made during the next several agenda items for future action if need be. I would also remind council and the audience of item 4C of our ethics policy, which states that city officials shall refrain from abusive conduct, personal charges, or verbal attacks upon the character or motives of the public or other city officials and employees. Mr. Stark?
I had an opportunity to visit with your Austin lawyer. He seems capable. Just a few remarks. The previous mayor got me hooked on listening to the mayor's conversation on radio, and so I've gotten hooked on it. And Mayor White, you've done a good job cheerleading for Kerrville most of the time on the radio stations, so I like that, so congratulations. In that habit, I heard one of your interviews with Harley David Ballou, and I was taken aback, and it really got my attention, and I thought I must have heard it incorrectly, so I asked for the recording to be sent to me. And then Miss Brenda graciously turned that into a transcript for us. And some of the phrases talking about the budget, you said that the River Trail budget, we're kind of in limbo, and it's interesting on the accounting for that. And I've never, Ms. Yarborough, my apologies, I've never heard of accounting as being interesting. So I'm sorry about that. And then you went on to say that professional fees, acquisition fees, legal fees, even the paving in those parks were not accounted for. So I was a little concerned, and then I looked into your conversation a little bit more, and then you say that I think so, but it doesn't include, as I understand, and these same things, the fees, the easements, professional fees, surveying, legal fees, and paving. And then you go on to say, but I was told originally that it was not, and that it would add up, I figure, about $900,000, somewhere in there. So it sounded like, to me, that you weren't given the same amount of information that maybe I was receiving. So I asked Todd to supply me with some email correspondence, and I could see that he was giving you the same information, and Ms. Sandra was giving you the same information, and that you had all of this river trail information. You'd been educated on that it was coming from EIC. And so after I was inquiring about that, I was trying to get up to speed, and thank you for providing your personal file on that. And I was trying to educate myself on how you could have gone from all of that education to a flexible, pliable version of the budget. And I've never seen it presented in such a manner. And then I started looking into our conversations during City Council, and it seems like whenever you're not for a project or you're against a project, that you'll bring out random numbers, and that you'll try to ask a lot of questions, which is good.
Mr. Stark, I would ask that you observe the reading that I had from the procedural rules. We will not
Thank
make
you.
personal
I'm
remarks.
continuing. So I realize that this is your strategy, that if you're against a project, that you try to raise questions or efficacy of the
Mr. Stark, once again, that has to do with motives, and you are not to suggest. If you have some facts that you'd like to discuss, we're here to do it.
So I understand that we have the awards that the Finance Department has received going back to 1984. Congratulations, Ms. Yarborough. I'm very proud of our finance department. I also understand that you and Gene Allen are on the audit committee and you signed off on the last audit, correct? Those are facts.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I feel like our finance department's in good shape. I don't think that we need to say that this project is in limbo and that we're not accounting for any of these things. So I don't expect a conversation, but I'll open it up if anybody has any comments.
Any comments or questions from council? From the audience?
Well,
Mayor Pratt?
Mr. Andrew, I believe you said something first.
I just was going to say, however we got here, for me, what is important, not whether we agree on the project or not. We can disagree. The project has been voted. But what is absolutely mandatory is that we all agree that we have publicly accounted for the funds correctly and that the 1.1 that's left is what's there. All costs have been accounted, and that we as a team of 5 totally support the position that the accountants, audits, and Ms. Yarborough has. To me, that we're moving forward. We're going forward. Howsoever we got here, we can all have our own mind, but I want to know that each one of us believe that the 1.1 is the right number and all costs are accounted. I, for one, in all my research, am comfortable that's the right number.
Mr. Pratt?
Jack Pratt, 105 Deerwood. If there's anyone on council who feels like and has made public statements that the financial reporting is inaccurate, they've failed the citizens of Kerrville by not taking that action to the district attorney and following legal charges against them. And if you don't file those legal charges, then I have to question whether your facts are actual or not, rather than opinion. So let's get all on the same wavelength and be positive about the city of Kerrville, not negative. And also, I would like to call your attention to your ethics policy.
We're going to discuss that in 2 items.
Okay, I'll come back then. Thank you.
I have one speaker request form. Ms. McKay, are you going to speak to this, or?
Peggy McKay, P.O. Box 291464, Kerrville. Actually, the buildup to this has been much greater than anything that's been said tonight. And from my point of view, this was a waste in time, in money, when it would have been a courtesy to just sit down and say, these are my concerns. You said this figure, I disagree because this is the figure I have. It could have been done in a face-to-face conversation without all the money and time spent by staff, and it makes no sense to me. What a waste of time.
What was the buildup that you're referring to?
Well, all the buildup that this is an ethics problem. I haven't heard anything to say we have an ethics problem.
I haven't mentioned anything.
Wasn't that
ethical.
in the, I don't have the agenda.
No, it's not, ma'am.
Discussion
Or,
of public comments.
okay, discussion of public
So I'm
comments.
I don't know who gave you.
I apologize that I should have said public comments.
I'm just curious about the buildup.
My comments still go the same way. Talk to each other. If you disagree, if I don't agree with somebody, they have got to prove to me that what I have is not correct. Talk to each other. Where are you wrong? This exercise in doing a public event like this has more of a harassment tone than a solution thing. I don't see a problem except for communication.
And legally, we can't meet outside of city chambers.
Yes, you can.
And I have consulted with one of my other members. So
You can meet if have Brenda make a little note that y'all are going to meet to have a special meeting and talk.
We're doing that now.
Well, yeah, but after how much money has spent copying this, and it's a waste of time.
Thank you for your remarks. Anyone else
Mayor,
like to speak? Sorry?
May I point out that you went over the ethics policy before we started, and we're starting to have heckling from the audience, and I don't think that's fair to you or any of
Heckling, I
us.
haven't noticed, but if anybody has to cough or anything, if you go into the lobby, we'd appreciate it.
I think laughing's more than coughing.
Well, I would ask again that we observe the policies of the procedure of City of Kerrville. Any other comments? If not, I have one comment, and according to the procedural rules, the presiding officer will make the last statement, this is it, and then we'll move on. 3 times in the interview that Mr. Stark is referring to, I said, as a disclaimer, in my understanding, 3 times, or as I understood was mentioned once. At the conclusion of the interview, quote, I will confirm these numbers. I don't want to give out anything that is incorrect. There was a question by Mr. Andrew to Mr. Parton, and the inquiry drew an answer, and that answer came on 7/22. And actually, when those answers came, there was $525,000 that was added to the park from a 2002 bond issue, which I understand is not a part of the $6 million that we're accounting for now, but it was listed as funding for Phase 1, in addition to the $898,665, which we have listed from the $6 million for Phase 1 from 615. It did not include 1.5 miles of paving and a couple of parking lots, which Mr. Parton did include that message when he gave that accounting. So there were some things, and I'm not saying anything was illegal. I'm saying what it was confusing. There are several accounts. There's a $6 million account. There was a $525,000 account, and then there was a parks improvement account. So there's 3 accounts that we're looking for, and for the new ones, I know it's, I'm sure, very difficult. But for clarification,
I'm fully capable of understanding
yeah,
it.
and you have received that, I'm sure,
Yes,
as
ma'am, I
yeah.
did.
For clarification, after that, I asked for the complete B5 River Trail accounting, which was sent to me by Mr. Parton, which he did say included all invoices to date. So on August 11, we did have a balance of $1,022,707.20. August 18, there were some credits. The balance was $1,025,179.34. August 19, there were some more adjustments, and the balance now is $1,037,385.55. So this is a very large project. It's been ongoing for quite a while. There's at least one more expenditure I know to come on this for the property that we discussed last Friday. So in essence, what started out as a $7 million 6-mile river trail and parks improvement project is now over $9 million, and it's about 4.5 to 5 miles. It is a very big project, and those things can happen. I never said any of that was bad. In fact, I voted for the Lowry Park Street extension based on the numbers that were given to us in the construction fund. I've also not disapproved of the negotiations that have been in the back room that we've done for future acquisitions. We did have a vote on the last one, which was a little bit different in my mind. But I think the questions now have been asked. As Mr. Andrews said, the answers have been given, and the matter should now be closed. And if there's no more comments, that's exactly what I intend to do. So if there are no more, I'd like to move on to item number 6F, which is review and discussion of public comments regarding the Kerrville Public Utility Board loan made by Mayor White during open session at the City Council meeting of July 26, 2016, concerning the filing of a class action lawsuit against City of Kerrville, as those comments pertain to the loan agreement between the city and KPUB. This is also yours, Mr. Stork.
Thank you. Again, during that conversation, thank you, Ms. Brenda, for your transcript. You replied to Mr. Ellison that you were quite confused, that you didn't quite explain it to him. And then you said these words to a hostile lawyer for the city. And I can't answer it any further than that. If it is, it is. I would hate to think that we might be looking at some kind of class action. You know, if people decided that that was not the case. I don't know how that. And then I interrupted you and suggested that that's probably not a good idea.
Actually, you said, I'm not sure why you would recommend that.
That's true. And then I don't know what your relationship with Mr. Ellison is, but 2 days later we got a demand letter from him. So I don't know if he took a cue from you.
Mr. Stork, I will remind you for the third time
I would
that
just
you are
want us
not
to make sure that we're positive and
abiding by the council
and
policies.
fighting for the city. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the council members? Any from, let's see, I have one on 6F from James Kraft. Is that correct? You pass? All right. Any others who wish to speak to this agenda item? I'm sorry, Mr. Naaman.
I got coupons for Burger King later if y'all want to go. I just want to say that I'm surprised there hadn't been a class action lawsuit. That's just my opinion. I think it's a substantive due process issue where you're asking one group of people to pay interest on a loan to another group of people, as was in my comments from last, I think, July the 24th. I think that was the last meeting we had. So it's in the minutes if anybody wants to read it. It's there. Thank you.
Any others? If not, again, I will conclude with my statement. In reference to this discussion, we had, Todd Parton spoke of unexpected earnings from KPUB received through a settlement agreement when we discussed the loan approval from KPUB for the $8.5 million. The nature and tenor of the audience responses was of a questioning nature, to say the least. Such comments as using money from one pot, loaning to another, will I get my money back in 10 years, the loan has no return, concerned about the appearance of robbing Peter to pay Paul, references to money coming from over-collected power, and there was a mention of fiduciary duties and arm's length transactions, and that was from a number of different respondents. I have personally never seen the settlement documents. To my knowledge, only Councilman Fine and Mayor Pratt have seen the settlement documents as they sat on the KPUB board at that time, prior to our voting on the loan. The KPUB attorneys have now made that opportunity available, by the way, to my attorney and to me, should we so desire. Although there is an Attorney General's opinion pending, I understand, about whether or not those documents will be allowed to be made public because of a confidentiality agreement with LCRA. My remarks never, quote, recommended or suggested anything. They were merely meant to have citizens' inquiries addressed so that there would be no pursuit of litigation. I feel that that's our duty and our responsibility as elected officials. Again, elected officials have responsibility to reasonably discuss and decide how to handle public funds, which this was, and I believe it is the public's right to transparency. That having been said, in conclusion, I would like to say that there have been 4 public information requests filed by Councilman Stork asking me for voluminous amounts of information for which there was, in my opinion, no particular purpose. Over 800 pages have now been reproduced by our City Secretary's office for these 2 agenda items. There were originally 4 agenda items, one of which pertained to a private conversation.
Do you want to put the FOIA request on the agenda?
With Jonas Titus of KEDC. That one was removed. In the future, and in keeping with City Council policies, I will ask each council person to refer particular questions or concerns directly to the other council member unless something rises to the level of true ethics violation, in which instance the particular violation should be clearly defined with proper notice given for response. Thank you for your comments. We will now move to agenda item 6G.
Me again.
All right. Mr. Stork, a review and discussion of resolution number 40-2013, which is the City of Kerrville ethics policy for elected and appointed officials.
And this is the one area your lawyer from Austin did not threaten me on. We are required to periodically
I'm sorry, somebody has a jiggly stomach over there. We'll ask you to keep it down. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Stark.
We adopted a city resolution October the 8th, 2013, and it says that we should, or 2013, that we should periodically review this. I thought this was an appropriate time. I'm sure that you all have read this. I wanted to point out Section D, city officials shall perform their duties in accordance with the processes and rules of order established by the City Council, which govern the public deliberation, the public policy issues, meaningful involvement of the public, and implementation of the policy decisions of the City Council by city staff. I wanted to emphasize that meaningful involvement in the public was part of our policy on ethics. And then M, the policy role of city officials. City officials shall respect and adhere to the city's governmental structure as outlined in the city's charter, policies, and procedures. In this structure, the City Council determines the policies of the city with information, analysis, and advice provided by the public, boards, and staff. City officials, therefore, shall not interfere with the administrative functions of the city or the professional duties of the city staff, nor shall they impair the ability of staff to implement city policy. And then there's a signature page that I wanted to read to the audience and to those at home. The statement of commitment, ethics policy for elected appointed officials, City of Kerrville, Texas, as a member of the Kerrville City Council or a city board, commission, or committee. I agree to uphold the policy and conduct myself by the following model of behavior. I will, and then there's several points. I will recognize the worth of city officials, employees, appreciate the individual talents, perspectives, and contributions. I will help create an atmosphere of respect and civility where the public, city officials, and city staff are free to express their ideas and work to their full potential. I will conduct my personal and public affairs with honesty, integrity, fairness, and respect for others. I will respect the dignity and privacy of individuals and organizations. I will keep the common good as my highest purpose and focus on achieving constructive solutions for a public benefit. And then here's one that I really wanted to point out. I will avoid and discourage conduct which is divisive or harmful to the best interests of the cities. I will treat all people with whom I have come in contact in a manner I wish to be treated. I will, before speaking, acting, I will ask myself the following questions. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better relationships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And then it's a signature location. I feel like we've reviewed the ethics policy as it's been laid out. If anybody has any further comments on that, I welcome you to them.
I didn't know if you were making suggestions to change or if you would like to appoint members of council or something to work on this, or
we just are supposed to periodically review it, so
right.
I thought it was an appropriate time to do that.
So are you suggesting that we do any rewrites, or would you like to add or delete
No, ma'am. I think
any
that
sections?
we should probably reinstate, Ms. Brenda, this signature page for everyone, boards and council. But I don't think we need an action. I think we just need to review it.
Okay. Were there any other comments or questions? Does anybody want to add to this on council? Anybody want to add? Yeah, I see. We'll do that.
I'm comfortable.
Okay. I will just make a couple of comments that it may be well to review the policy because I see some redundancy in regards to this with our, not that any of it's bad, but a little bit of redundancy between this and our procedural policy. When you look between the charter, the procedural policy, and the ethics policy, we have, some degree of redundancy there. There is also some ambiguity. Words like impartial, unduly, inappropriate, those are rather subjective terms that may be difficult to quantify there. There's a little bit of overreach that I don't believe is consistent with the terms of the charter. For instance, on the last page, it says, this would be Section 6, under compliance and enforcement. The City Council may impose sanctions such as reprimand, formal censure, or loss of assignment on and I don't know what loss of assignment in particular means. So there's some things that may need to be clarified, and actually that may be something that Mr. Parton could look at, or Mr. Hayes, whoever would write this, with our suggestions for deletions or amendments. Those are just, I would have some deletions and amendments myself. So if that's something that you'd like for us to bring back, I would be.
That was not my objective. It was just to review it as per stated.
So,
I mean, you can do whatever you want with this.
okay.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to, but I've gotten a couple looks from people. And I'm in probably my 9th year on Kerrville City Council. I'm the old man. For being the young man, I'm the old man. And I've never been embarrassed to be on City Council before. And I am right now. And it's really sad. The lack of communication that is going on here is truly embarrassing. And I take blame too. I mean, I think it's on all of us. We all need to agree to disagree. If we don't get along on an item, don't make it personal. I'm not up here to be personal. I didn't run against somebody because I don't like them. I ran because this is my town. I'm passionate about Kerrville. My family's been here for 120 years, and I hope we're here for at least that much longer. And it's just sad when it comes down to this, but bombarding people, and it's on all 5 of us. I mean, it's you too, it's me too. And a simple phone call can save hard feelings, or catching someone in the hall ahead of time. But in all this filing stuff back and forth, it's truly embarrassing. And I think we as a council, instead of reviewing these documents, we need to start living by them.
I agree.
And we need to start treating each other with respect and treat people the way you want to be treated. All of us.
I agree.
All the way across. Okay, let me finish. I didn't cut you off. All of us. And if you've got something to say, say it. And maybe outside of council might be a more appropriate place and time to say something than bringing it up here and trying to embarrass, one of us or staff. And this goes for all of us. If you've got a question, ask it ahead of time, and maybe we can get an answer that might save embarrassing anybody and might make us all look like we're a unified team, because we are a team. The same community elected all of us. Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, Kerrville elected us, not just one segment. And we're supposed to be up here working together for the betterment of Kerrville, not to come after each other. And it's like I said, it's truly embarrassing to sit here and listen to all this going back and forth. It's time to move on.
I agree. We've been here 3 hours. So if there's no reference here to, if nobody thinks we need to amend or withdraw or anything, are we through with this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak? Mr. Pratt, Mayor?
Jack Pratt, 105 Deerwood. Great comments, Councilman Fine. Couldn't come at a better time. I appreciate them. But there's a couple of things in this policy that were mentioned, and I think there were a couple that were left out that I think should be mentioned. And I'm calling to paragraph Roman numeral 4, last 2 sentences, and I'll read those. City officials are prohibited from using their positions to influence any city government decision in which they have a personal interest. Under the city charter, city council assumes the duties of office without party or partisan mark of designation. For instance, if I own a piece of property out on, say, Loop 534 that's next to the dump, if you would, and I have situations when I'm on council that come up for vote, I should be recusing myself if my property could be influenced financially. So there's one good example. Another example, did you read the advocacy on paragraph
Which
L?
paragraph?
L?
No.
It's actually under item 4.
No,
And
it's paragraph L, I.
I.
Okay?
Yeah.
City
Or I.
officials shall only represent the official policies and positions of city council or board to the best of their ability, and such representations may only occur when receiving the specific approval of City Council or Board. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to reiterate what Councilman Fine was saying. When City Council makes a decision and passes, whether it's unanimous or not, City Council members should back that policy. And I'll give you a good example. I proposed a policy when I first became mayor about establishing a audit, is a committee about finances. And I was voted down. I never mentioned that situation again my entire mayorship. I backed council's decision, even though it was against me. And council was right. So there were, hindsight, it was a bad decision by my part at that time, but I'm willing to make admit that. But we have to, I'm going to go back unified. You're a unified team. You got to do things from a unified point of view. And the quarterback makes a call, or the coach makes a call, and then the quarterback executes, and it fails. The quarterback takes the fault, even though the coach made the call. The quarterback has a chance to change it. I'm just saying, and the quarterback and the team are all together, even though the play didn't work. So let's get on board and be positive about Kerrville in our future. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to item 6G. No, we've done that. 6H. Discussion and direction to city staff regarding 173 acres of land located in Kerrville extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Mayor, Council, this was put on the agenda. I had received a phone call from a prospective buyer on 2 tracts of property, about 173 acres. The property is at the eastern limits of the city. It's in the city of Kerrville extraterritorial jurisdiction. The property was part of a foreclosure sale. I do have a PowerPoint presentation I hope that IT can bring up back there. Let's see if it's there. I have a map that tries to show the property lines. Did I leave it up in my office?
Here it is.
Yeah, there it is. Anyway, okay. I probably left it up in my office. They can't call it up, so apologize. Anyway, so 173 acres. The property is between State Highway 27 and the Guadalupe River. The northern boundary of the property, of the 173 acres, has got the new James Avery facility that's being constructed. It's got Fox Tank, the new piece, as well as the piece that they've been renting as one of the elements or lots within the Airport Commerce Park, and then it's got the Airport Commerce Park itself. On the north east side of Highway 27, you've got the airport. This property is about a mile due east on 27 from the Martin Marietta, planned Martin Marietta sand and rock quarry. Anyway, the phone call that I received was from an individual who was interested in purchasing the property. It was on an online public auction. And they had mentioned that they were in the sand and rock business, the quarry business. And they called to see what the city's position on sand and rock quarry, dirt quarry was on this particular piece of property. And I informed them at the time, I said, council hasn't discussed this. This is not inside the city limits. It is in our ETJ. But I presume that if this item were to be discussed by council, we'd probably have some similar discussion points as we did with Martin Marietta, which this individual was familiar with. So to fast forward, property sale closed last Friday. I did receive notice that the individual that called me said that they were not the successful bidder. That they didn't know who bought it. It was a blind
They were not?
bid. They were not. The property, I will tell you, was being marketed for quarry. If you looked at the information that I provided to you, one of the things that you'll notice in marketing pieces was that it's rich in natural resources, I think was the direct quote on the marketing pieces for the bid. So really, this really began to beg the question. Again, we have a potential use. there might or might not be perceived some particular conflict with this piece of property, and should it be developed as quarry or some other use. So again, this is being presented for you to really kind of have a discussion, see what direction, if any, council may have for this. Again, to kind of reiterate, in these kinds of situations, it's in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The city's opportunities to regulate land in the ETJ is really pursuant to a couple things. One is our subdivision rules and regulations. Kerrville does apply those into the ETJ. Sign regulations, we can apply those into the ETJ. So those are two things we can do and are applicable today. The things that aren't applicable are land use regulations. So the options to be able to apply zoning and land use regulations really are pursuant to annexation and zoning. You do have an option to enter into non-annexation agreements, where you can look at agreements that have some provisions and conditions related to that. Couple major points of discussion, if this proceeds forward beyond tonight, would be the way in which you actually apply those regulations. Zoning are pursuant to the city's police powers, and so if there's a violation, you go issue citation. There's a actual violation of law. If there's a violation of an agreement, then it's going to be probably litigation, and so that's a civil issue, and we're talking trying to get restraining orders and going through a process like that. So you have another sell of a major piece of property that's on the fringe of the city along 27, which we discussed as a major corridor. We've spent money in the airport. We've spent money, providing economic benefits to Fox Tank 1 and 2, to James Avery Craftsman. We've extended utilities. There are a variety of issues. If you look at the master plan designation where this property is located, along the frontage of 27, the airport is designated for airport and public use. On the south side, you've got industrial designation on the future land use plan in a depth that basically follows James Avery, follows Fox Tank, and follows Airport Commerce Park. This portion is designated as low-density residential on the future land use plan today. It's probably something we need to think about and consider. I'm not sure land use residential in this application is applicable, considering what's already developed along that section and the nature of the area that's located within. It is definitely an area that I would recommend, if we proceed forward with doing our future land use plan designation, we definitely need to look at this corridor and look at these land uses and what's evolved since 2008 when we did our last land use plan update. So with that, turn it back over to council for discussion in any direction that y'all may have.
Do you know if mining operations are going on all three tracks? I know it's been quarried for a while.
The only indication that I saw was a quarry that was going towards the southeast portion of the property, not on the entirety of that property. The property in question that was sold, about half of it is currently in the floodplain and floodway. So you only have a half of it that's above. The indication, looking at aerials and what's being quarried out there, or what activity's been out there, is down in the floodplain right now. So I don't know. It is. It would be, based on looking at aerial and locations. So there may be a concern or an issue there of mining or excavating in the floodplain area without a permit. I don't know if there was a permit or isn't. We haven't looked into that. We're talking to the county about that. That would have been subject to county floodplain permit and TCQ.
You haven't checked with Mr. Hewitt or TCEQ on that?
I have not. So I haven't done a search with TCQ to look to see if there was a notification submitted for a start of or the voluntary notification process, the administrative process to notify that you're intending to operate a quarry. I don't know if that has been submitted at this point.
So how close are city utilities to any of these locations?
City utilities come along Highway 27, so we have city utilities that serve the Airport Commerce Park, that serve Fox Tank, that also serve James Avery, and then obviously there's utilities to the airport.
So they would have to bring those. There's no further infrastructure that the city would have to do along those lines.
correct. Yeah, yes, ma'am. They would extend mains off of those and loop and circulate extension of service off of those existing mains on 27.
But we have no indication. We have no indication from the buyers on what their intent is at this time.
We don't at this time. And again, it was a blind bid, so I don't know who the successful bidder was. And property hasn't closed to our knowledge at this point either. So.
Okay. My suggestion would be to wait to see who bought it first of all, and then contact them and find out what their intentions are. In the meantime, I think contacting TCEQ to see if there's any permits out there, or if they're operating illegally, would probably be prudent on our part. I know you're waiting for council direction before you did all that, but that would be my suggestion.
I ditto that. If we could get those pieces of information, if it does close, who the buyer is, if we can, if there's a permit from TCEQ or the county. Is there any other things we would need to ask?
No, I just
find out.
It just says to me we need to, which I want to ask for, we need to take a real hard look at our ETJ and annexation and where our risks are.
Okay, any comments or questions from the audience? Okay, if not, I think Mr. Parton has hit some immediate direction. And item 7A is a post-event report for Kerrville's 4th on the River. Ashley?
Good evening again. This presentation is only 43 slides long, so I hope you're okay with it. Just kidding. The annual July 4th event took place on Monday, July 4th at Louise Hayes Park. It's been taking place for 6 years now, and approximately 10,000 people participated and enjoyed the event throughout the day. Activities included food and craft vendors, children's activities such as face painting. There were, I guess one of my slides didn't make it in there, a bouncy house activity area, things like that for the children. The vendors opened at around noon, and the concert started at 4 with Robert Earl Keen as the headliner and finishing up with the fireworks display. Here's some people enjoying the concert. Fireworks display at wrapping up the event, sponsored by Mamacitas. This is a shot from the stage area. As you can see, the people enjoying the event. We had, like I said, close to 10,000 throughout the day in the park in the event area as well. And at this point, I'll turn it back to you to answer any questions you may have.
It was a great event. Thanks.
Yes.
Extraordinarily well executed.
Nobody got hurt. Everybody was well.
No incidents to report. Everything went really well.
That's great. Thank you so much for that report. Ms. Yarbrough, budget 7B, budget and economic update.
This is the budget update for ending July 31st, which puts us at 83% of our budget for the year. In the general fund, our revenue for the month was $1,503,938. Our year-to-date revenue is $21,865,517. Our expenditures in the general fund for the month of July was $2,238,073. Our year-to-date expenditures is $18,564,327. In the water sewer fund, our income for the month was $981,851. Our year-to-date income is $9,311,748. Our expenditures for the month was $754,329. Our expenditures for the year is $8,817,137. Our hotel motel fund, our income for the month was $120,242. Our year-to-date is $899,181. Our expenditures is $252,624. Our year-to-date is $960,474. And on the economic update on our community investment plan, our 4 major projects that are going on, it shows your project budget, your month expense, your project to date expense, and your balances on your projects as of July 31st. From the development services, in the month of July, we had 5 residential permits issued, no commercial permits. On housing, it's holding pretty steady as what it has done for about the past year in sales and dollars, and our unemployment continues to hold steady.
So we're in the hotel motel fund, how does that work exactly? We have 2 more months left in the fiscal year, so
we have 2 more months of revenue coming in. We have paid all of our large expenditures for CBB and Arts Co-op. We may have some small expense for some audits on some hotels, but that would be the expenses, but the rest of it will be revenue coming in these 2 months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments by council or our audience?
Good report.
Okay. Items for future agenda, item number 8.
I have 3 of them. I'd like to see us get with the chief and talk about texting while driving. That's becoming more and more popular, and I've had several comments made about texting and going ahead and looking at what we can do. I know it's tough to enforce, but I would really like to see us take a look at it. And then the next thing is, going along with what Mr. Andrew was saying, we've talked about getting an annexation committee together with representatives of the county, TxDOT, the school, and I'd like to see us move forward on putting that together to getting some sort of an annexation plan. And there are other tools out there. I went to a conference back a few months ago that TML put on annexation. It was a lot of very interesting information. And then the next thing is in the park, along the river trail, especially in our park system. I spoke to Todd about this. We had a guy from our class of '81 who died of leukemia right outside of high school, and we have a bunch of people wanting to get together to do a memorial for him. Do we have any kind of a plan, like in a park, where you can donate funds for a specific thing in a park or an area? I'd like to see us talk about that memorial plan and what we can do, and is there a list? And along with that, I'm going to throw out a big one here. I've had a lot of interest lately on Tybee Mountain. It's been that boondoggle that nobody really knew who it belonged to for all you Tybee grads out there. It was a big part of going to Tybee was you do your retreat or your trek up the Tybee Mountain. You have the big service and all that stuff. But for years, no one really knew who even owned it. And I think at one point in time, everybody did kind of a quick claim deed, and if the county said, if we own any part of it, city, you got it. And the KISD did the same thing. So basically the city has it. But I'd like to see us, it was kind of a default, the city ended up with it. And I'd really like to see us get together and go ahead and get a full survey on everything on that, and maybe look at doing something with Tybee Mountain. You can't even drive up the road anymore. It's one of the higher hills or mountains in Kerr County, and you can't even drive up there anymore. And I'd really like to see us take a look at doing something, even if it's through donations. I mean, being a class 35 years ago, I've had a lot of people who would donate some money towards it. How much? I don't have any idea. But I don't know how much it would cost either to pave that road or do something, put some benches up there, and do something nice with that. But I know that's a lot to dump on everybody, but that's something I'd like to see us at least take a look at, and how we could work with the class of whatever that came through Tybee many years ago. So
Actually, I'm sorry.
a couple Tybee grads out there that, they're laughing, but go ahead. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Andrew?
I had 4, he stole 1. So that's, I definitely want us to do something about getting them, the annexation. We've got to get out ahead of that. The second one is that scheduled for the 13th, report from the YPR meeting we had. Mr. Stark and Mr. Fine and Mr. Farmer, who just left, will be making a report would like to make a report and discuss how to go forward.
A report or a discussion? A report? Or?
A report and discussion of how to go forward. So there may be an action item.
With ordinance or with?
No. That I'm asking that. I think the way forward is to have a committee to review the ordinance, and
So that's what you would
got
put
some
on,
ideas.
to
Yes.
discuss a committee, maybe.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that. I would like to seriously consider re-engaging, because I don't know what other term, the incredible reuse committee that was did the in-depth, as we now get the design towards several have expressed interest in looking at that, you know, from a knowledge, and we ought to use that talent and skills of probably the most astute group we've ever put together in this city. And I would love to see them go at it again. And the last is, and we're a little late, but I happen to be out of town, but I would like to see us do a certificate of appreciation and acknowledgement for Dr. Troxell and his resignation for what he's done for this city for the last 10 years, however long he's been, 10 years?
15, I think.
So if we can put, huh?
I think it's closer to 15, isn't it? 14 or 15.
He was here when I got here, so it's 10. That's all I can say is 10 plus, however long. Anyway, I would like to see us, you know, have an official recognition of what he's done for the school system.
And also, Tony Farmer asked before the meeting if we could do, I believe what we did last year was have a proclamation to the young people in recovery. For making September, I believe he said they're Young People in Recovery Month.
Recovery Month is September.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two, if we could put the Dark Skies, Jim Wills, and I think it's Cliff Kleiman on the agenda. And then maybe develop some ideas for Mayor Pratt's handicap accessible, motorized go-kart races, whatever Mayor Pratt was talking about with that.
Check your insurance. Okay, any others? You got that? Pardon?
I'll defer.
Okay, looks like we'll have a full agenda then. Number 9 is announcements of community interest. Caitlin Berry, would you do that for us this evening, please, ma'am?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Kerrville Fire Department is hosting a blood drive this Saturday, August 27th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the Walmart parking lot. Please come help support the South Texas Blood and Tissue Center, which has been asked to help send blood to Louisiana in light of the recent floods there. It only takes 45 minutes to help save the life of another person, and the critical blood shortages in the San Antonio area currently limit the South Texas Blood and Tissue Center's capability to contribute. The Bud Holdsworth Memorial Library is excited to announce a number of new activities and events this fall, including the new Anime Club, Stream Club, the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, and additional preschool story time and a drive-in at the library. For more information on these fun and free activities, you can visit the city's website or call the library reference desk at 830-258-1274. The final installment of Movies in the Park will be held on Friday, September 9th at Louise Hayes Park. You can bring the family out at 9 p.m. to watch the PG-rated movie Frozen. Entry to the park and movie is free. Also, just a reminder that the Kerrville Municipal Offices and the Bud Holdsworth Memorial Library will be closed on Monday, September 5th in observance of Labor Day. And finally, we would like to recognize the Kerrville Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association for recently being awarded the Texas Alumni Membership of the Year Award at the 2016 Texas Citizen Police Academy and Law Enforcement Training Conference. This award is given to the Alumni Association judge to have the best membership program based on events, activities, and direct support to the police department they support and the number of hours volunteered. The Kerrville Citizen Police Academy Alumni Association currently has 97 members who volunteered more than 7,000 hours during the last fiscal year. The Kerrville Alumni Association has now earned all 4 awards offered by the conference, winning the Ray Raymond Peace Officer of the Year Award, the Texas Alumni Association of the Year Award, and the Texas Alumni Member of the Year Award in previous years. So congratulations to them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other announcements?
Yeah, Playhouse 2000 has always a bridesmaid going on for the next 2 weekends, I believe. Last weekend, if you get a chance to go see it, it's hilarious. I mean, it is definitely, it's in the VK Garage Theater. It truly is hilarious, and our own Jennifer is in the background this time. She's wearing black instead of white for this one. So, but anyway, if you get a chance, go support Playhouse 2000.
And I forgot to mention it, Councilman Fine, but I did have a talk with Jack Stevens a couple of months ago, and he mentioned they would be interested in taking over the responsibility of Tide Mountain. So I don't know if you want to talk with him, but he was interested in that.
There you go.
If there's no more announcements, then we will adjourn at 9:31.